Part 10. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 91. After the skill is activated, the old man's body trembled slightly. But it only trembled a little. If Yilin hadn't been watching the old man's movements, perhaps even this slight tremor would have been ignored. Then, the old man's footsteps paused slightly. There was a hint of surprise in his brows, and he looked towards Yilin. Sudden. Everything was silent. Of course, there was no noise around here. But when the old man looked over, Yilin felt a sense of complete silence in her heart. The feeling of my heartbeat being stepped on finally disappeared. The old man's feet fell to the ground silently. Yilin's heart did not explode on the spot. Behind Yilin, Ling Wen's eyes were dull, his body softened, and he sat down on the ground. Terrified. It was like a tight string suddenly relaxed, causing him to suddenly lose all his strength. Ling Wen was soaked all over. Those few dozen seconds just now made him feel that it was 10 times, 100 times more terrifying than the preliminary apostle trial he had experienced not long ago. Disaster-ridden, invalid. Yilin lowered his head and silently put away the blood jasmine. He knew the identity of the old man 10 meters away. It was impossible for Yilin not to know this person. However, at this point in time, Yilin didn't know the old man yet. The old man didn't recognize Yilin either. Therefore, Yilin could only choose to remain silent. The old man recalled the strange feeling he had just felt, like being bitten by a mosquito. He let out a light sigh, but didn't care. After all, who cares about getting bitten by a mosquito? The old man stood 10 meters away and looked at Yilin for a long time. Suddenly he said, "Are you the bastard who bullied my precious granddaughter?" Yilin's expression was dull for a few seconds, and then she slowly took out her mobile phone from her pocket. "Shall I make a call?" The old man snorted softly. It seemed that he didn't pay any attention to Yilin's little actions. Even if Yilin took out a laser cannon from his crotch, he would still be confident that he would smash the laser cannon into pieces with a slap before the bastard fired. Toot-toot. 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 After waiting for a long time, seeing that the old man's face was getting worse and worse, the call was finally connected. Hello. Molly's voice sounded weakly. Yilin had no expression on her face and said directly, without any nonsense, "If you don't want me to be slapped to death by your grandpa, please ask Miss Mo to explain to your dear grandpa whether I bullied you or not." The last 3 words, "bully you," were almost squeezed out from Yilin's teeth. "It seems like it has happened before." Molly's tone was a little uncertain. 10 meters away, the old man raised his hand expressionlessly. Molly thought for 3 seconds. If she didn't explain, given her grandfather's character, he might really slap Yilin to death. So Molly softened her tone, "Give grandpa the phone." Yilin pointed at the phone to the old man and then threw it away. After the old man took the call, his stern face instantly changed into a doting smile. "My dear granddaughter." "Bala, Bala, Bala. Bala, Bala, Bala. Oh." The old man suddenly looked at Yilin and drew out his voice, which was meaningful. As for what Molly told her grandfather, Yilin didn't know. But there is one thing Yilin is not exaggerating. The old man in front of him could indeed kill himself with one slap. Wrong. Even a slap may not be necessary. Yilin knew very well the identity and strength of the old man in front of her. There is no enemy. Age, unknown. Molly's grandfather. He has been trained to the extreme in ancient martial arts. Being able to walk around in a hail of bullets. Can pick chestnuts from the fire with bare hands without damaging the hair. It is said that 10 years ago, before the advent of the Tower era, he climbed to the top of Mount Everest with his bare hands without carrying an oxygen bottle, and had a picnic on the top of Mount Everest. Invincible, he is known as the strongest man in the Dragon Kingdom. Moreover, he is the only pure human that Yulin knows who has explosive attribute values, but failed to become an apostle because he refused the call of the tower. Do you believe in God? Yes/no. Then Amorendi chose no. The reason is unknown. However, there are different opinions on the various unofficial histories circulated in later generations. Later, Yulin overheard Emoli mention it. It seemed that it was because Emoren was the enemy. Do not speak English. That's why I clicked no. When Yulin recalled Emoren enemy's information, Amorendi finally finished the phone call with his sweet granddaughter Molly. Then he instantly put on an invincible expression and looked at Yulin calmly. One old and one young. One big and one small. Big eyes stare at small eyes. Gudong. Ling Wen swallowed silently. He felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. Then he silently took a step back. Listen to Yulin's words and be a little transparent. Amorendi threw Yulin's cell phone back. Then there was silence for a full 5 minutes. Amorendi then slowly spoke, boyfriend. Yulin shook her head seriously, no. Oh. Amorendi had a straight face, and then asked, ordinary friends. Yulin nodded quickly, yes. As long as you are willing to believe. Then Amorendi didn't ask any more questions, and Yulin didn't know if he believed it. Because sometimes, because some words are obviously true, but they are unconvincing. There are not many such things. Amorendi waved his hand and snorted, follow me. Amorendi didn't know if he wanted to teach Yulin a lesson, but that hum seemed to have some weird magic power, making Yulin's whole body tremble slightly, and a sweet taste came out of his throat. If you look carefully, you can see a little blood gushing out. He truly deserves to be the strongest man in the Dragon Kingdom. Yulin silently compared in her mind. He thought about his buff enhanced state when he was in Giwu Mountain, and whether he could be compared to others. I thought about it for a long time. Yulin simulated 7 scenarios in her mind, but could not come to a conclusion. Because even in later generations, Yulin had never seen Amorendi use all his strength. Flesh and blood, unfathomable. This is Yulin's evaluation of Amorendi. Although Amorendi didn't say a word, his posture was undoubtedly saying, come with me. The phone in my hand has been hung up. Yulin had no intention of calling back and asked Molly what exactly she had said to Amorendi. But judging from Amorendi's attitude, he shouldn't do anything to him for the time being. That damn girl. In fact, the last backup Yulin left in the real world was Amorendi. In fact, Amorendi may not have guessed that as the strongest human being, he fell into Yulin's plan. Of course, with his strength, he would not bother to engage in these vain battles of wits. Based on Yulin's understanding of Amorendi, Molly's repeated sneaking into small places like Qingcheng will definitely attract the old guy's attention. Given that Amorendi is known for his Molly control temperament, it would be strange if he didn't follow her secretly. After dealing with Xiao Yi, Yulin once asked Molly something. Molly said no one noticed her sneaking out. This is impossible. Therefore, Yulin was 70% sure that Amorendi must be somewhere in Qingcheng. With Amoren enemy coming, there must be that group of people. Forget it, contacting them in advance is not necessarily a bad thing. The corners of Yulin's lips raised slightly, and then she and Ling Wen followed Amorendi's footsteps. At the entrance of the Xiao family's residence, several round hover cars were parked. A man who looked to be in his 30s, wearing a gaudy floral shirt and beach shorts, was leaning idly by the car door, picking his nostrils and yawning. After all, it's not too early. It's already time to wash up and go to bed. When the man in shorts saw Amorendi approaching, his expression became solemn. He stood up straight and said loudly, "Team leader." Amorendi pointed at Yulin and Ling Wen behind him, and said casually, "Take these 2 bastards back first. I will find time to interrogate them tomorrow, and ask them some questions." Yilin's expression was slightly startled. Immediately afterwards, Amo Rendi walked into the night alone without any explanation. His steps seemed very slow, but the strange thing was that his seemingly slow steps actually took him a long way, giving the impression that one step seemed like 10 steps. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from Yilin's sight. Wait until Amo Rendi leaves? The man in short suddenly gave Yilin a thumbs up. Boy, you really are a heifer taking a sauna. Steaming, it's so cool. Your name is Yilin, right? The man in shorts grinned, and then introduced himself. You may not know me, my name is Zhao Yulong, Zhao Zilong's Zhao, jade-faced little flying dragon's Yulong, the person in charge here tonight. No, you are wrong, I know you. Yilin said this in her heart. But on the surface, he nodded calmly and said nothing. Yilin was not surprised that Zhao Yulong found her information at the speed of light. Because the energy of the other party is not comparable to that of the Qingcheng Police Department. Of course, if Xiao Yi hadn't transformed people, even if Yilin killed Xiao Mo, she might not have attracted these people from Zhao Yulong. Special group. This special is not the kind of special function described in classical novels. Of course, the people inside also have all kinds of weird and unique methods. But the accurate full name of the special group should be, the Special Abnormal Incident Handling Group. The name is slightly longer, so it is generally referred to as the special group. As the name suggests, this department is not part of the normal establishment. Out of sight of ordinary people. Specifically responsible for handling anomalies in the real world. Even if a large-scale murder occurs in a certain city, as long as it is not abnormal, it will not trigger the dispatch of the special team. But once it involves abnormal events that are beyond the reach of ordinary people, it will attract the attention of the special group. The identity of Xiao Yi's transformed person cannot be made public, so it will definitely attract a special group. This is also the reason why Yilin found it very troublesome after killing Xiao Yi. But in fact, once you become an apostle, you are no longer an ordinary person. Sooner or later, Yiren will come into contact with the special group. What's more, the leader of the special team is Molly's grandfather. It's just a matter of sooner or later. Yilin had already realized this and was prepared. Yilin shook hands with Zhao Yulong in a friendly manner. For Yilin, this was a new acquaintance. In short, not the enemy. Zhao Yulong gave Yilin a thumbs up, and whispered in Yilin's ear, I didn't expect that someone would dare to pick up the team leader's sweet granddaughter, tisk tisk tisk, awesome, martyr. Oh no, warrior. Hee, warrior. A true warrior dares to face the bleak life and face the dripping blood? Is this what Zhao Yulong probably means? Yilin only said, she and I, really don't have that kind of relationship. Yes, I understand, I really understand. Zhao Yulong patted Yilin on the shoulder, showing a tacit understanding of we are all men, why hide and tuck, you understand and I understand. Seeing that Yilin didn't speak, Zhao Yulong rolled his eyes. Said, you shouldn't be worried about ruining the Xiao family, right? Don't worry, we'll take over this matter. This is already a special and unusual incident. Whether you are guilty or not is up to the team leader. But having said that, compared to the Xiao family's trivial matter, Zhao Yulong's voice became smaller and smaller, and he muttered, you dare to date Mo Yetu, which is a big deal. Right now. The communicator hidden in Zhao Yulong's ear trembled slightly. Hear the words. Zhao Yulong's expression changed slightly. He subconsciously said to Yilin, you stay here, forget it, you guys come with me. You are not ordinary people anyway. The team leader also asked me to keep an eye on you. If you run away, I'm afraid that the team leader will use me to practice boxing. Yilin was speechless. But, Amo Ren enemy, maybe he can really do it. This was actually one of the reasons why Yilin didn't take the initiative to contact Mali for 3 years before becoming an apostle. Yilin followed Zhao Yulong and returned to the Xiao family's house. But I didn't expect. Except for the secret room where Xiao Mo is. It turns out. There is also a secret room. No one expected that there were so many secrets hidden in the Xiao family's house. The specific group efficiency is extremely high. While Yilin was chatting with Zhao Yulong, the corpses in the burial pit, as well as the corpses of all the Xiao family guards, were moved out and neatly displayed in the Xiao family's front yard. The empty yard was littered with corpses. No matter who sees this scene, they can't help but feel a creepy feeling. After all, in today's world where order has not yet collapsed, it is rare to see so many corpses at one time. Of course, Yilin, who is used to seeing the cruelty of the apocalypse, has no emotions in her heart. The body of the White Shadow Club member was placed in the corner. Because the mask symbolizing the identity of Bai Ying had been taken away by Ling Wen, no one else noticed anything special about that corpse. Furthermore, the White Shadow Club has not been active in the underground world for more than 10 years, and perhaps even the special group may not remember that such a behemoth was once hidden in the darkness. Xiao Mo's body was also moved out. After all, as the head of the Xiao family, Xiao Mo was treated well. The body was left in the hall, lying upright on the animal fur. At least there's no need to blow outside. When Zhao Yulong, Yilin, and Ling Wen passed by Xiao Mo's body, Zhao Yulong couldn't help but say something. "Your technique is quite skillful, isn't it?" With a bit of ridicule. As for what Zhao Yulong was thinking deep down, Yilin didn't figure it out for a while. I can only respond with silence. Zhao Yulong smiled and did not continue to pester. The three of them walked all the way to Xiao Mo's bedroom. The entrance to another secret room is under the bed in Xiao Mo's bedroom. Lifting the bedboard, a metal cover has been opened. Xiao Mo's room was full of people. They all wore semi-covering goggles that covered most of their faces, helmets on their heads, and the most advanced defensive soft armor on their bodies. They had a row of live ammunition hanging on their waists. It would be no exaggeration to say that they were fully armed. At a glance, this formation is extremely terrifying. On the chest of their defensive soft armor, there is a dragon-shaped badge with the word Field Service written on it. Zhao Yulong did not explain much about the identities of these people. But Yilin's understanding of the special group is that these heavily armed soldiers are not members of the special group, but they are under the management of the special group. Their full name is the Special Group Field Team. Specialized in armed force suppression. One of the field staff, who was tall and looked like a team leader, stood up straight when he saw Zhao Yulong approaching. His tone was hard. "Boss Zhao, we found a basement down there. What's in it?" Zhao Yulong also became somewhat interested. The field team leader fell silent. Zhao Yulong understood in his heart and smiled. These two people have nothing to do with each other. This matter also has something to do with them. Let's talk about it. The field team leader gritted his teeth and his tone was a bit serious. It's better, Mr. Zhao, let's go see it yourself. Zhao Yulong was slightly startled. He seemed to sense that something was wrong in the atmosphere, and his expression gradually became more solemn from the cynical one at the beginning. Good. A metal door has been silently broken open. As for the means. Yilin looked at the messy debris on the ground. Needless to say, the level of this door does not seem to be as high as the basement where Xiao Mo is hiding, otherwise, it would not be easily broken open by field personnel with violence. 3 people entered one after another. It was already filled with special team field personnel. Yilin's pupils shrank slightly. His expression changed slightly. Zhao Yulong smiled. He seemed to have anticipated Yilin's thoughts, so he explained, "Don't worry, you don't think that our special team sent out so many people just to deal with you alone, right?" Hearing this, Yulin's eyes narrowed slightly. Soon, he thought of another possibility. Xiao Yi. That's right, after I saw the corpse, I checked all the properties of the Xiao family as quickly as possible and found, forget it, let's not talk about it for now. Although Zhao Yulong seemed carefree, he remained tight-lipped about confidential information and did not reveal a single word. But based on just this few words, combined with the information Yilin learned from the apocalypse, we can roughly deduce it. Zhao Yulong took the lead and entered the basement. The basement was dimly lit, and although there were many field personnel densely packed inside, the strange thing was that no one said a word. The huge basement was filled with a strange solemnity. Suddenly, Zhao Yulong stopped. Trembling all over, he stared at the scene in front of him in shock. As a member of his special team, he actually stood there, silent for a long time. Yilin followed closely behind. At first he was a little confused about Zhao Yulong's reaction, but when he witnessed the same scene as Zhao Yulong's eyes, he suddenly understood. Yilin breathed a sigh of relief slowly. Not a word was spoken. I don't know how much time passed. Zhao Yulong's slightly trembling body finally calmed down. He gritted his teeth tightly and forced two words out of his mouth. Beast. Ling Wen, who followed at the end, was filled with horror. If he could speak, he would probably say, damn it at this moment. I saw that the entire basement was very spacious, about several hundred square meters. But that's not the point. The point is, in the entire basement, transparent and sealed glass cabins are arranged neatly like glass showcases in a museum. Each erected glass cabin is about 1 meter apart from each other. At a glance, it is clear that they are 1 meter apart from each other. The glass cabins filled up the entire basement. There was a faint green light in the glass cabin, and in the dark basement, it was like a will-o'-the-wisp, with a faint and weird aura. Each glass cabin that exudes green light is filled with a transparent unknown liquid, and from time to time, strings of bubbles emerge from the bottom of the glass cabin. What is displayed in each of these cylindrical glass cabins is not a valuable treasure or a cherished animal, but people. To be precise, the people raised in this glass cabin were once living people. Some only have the lower body. Or just the brain. Some cabins only have eyeballs, hearts, livers and other scattered organs. Some glass cabins even contain human beings with only half their body and a relatively complete brain. Those mutilated human beings had lifeless eyes, were naked, and their internal organs were slowly floating in the transparent liquid. Vomit. Behind him, Ling Wen finally broke the terrifying and strange silence. Seeing this scene, Ling Wen turned pale, lying on the ground and retching desperately. But because he hadn't eaten for too long, Ling Wen's stomach was empty. There was no food residue, and he only vomited a pool of colorful vomit containing bile. Zhao Yulong didn't expect that the dark side hidden underground in the Xiao family would be so shocking. If word spreads, let alone Qing Cheng, it will cause a big earthquake all over the country. Beast. Beast. Zhao Yulong gritted his teeth, and there was blood between his teeth. Gospel meeting. Yilin silently chanted this name in her heart. He actually didn't know that there was such a dirty side hidden behind the birth of mechanical life. Suddenly, Zhao Yulong patted Yilin on the shoulder. There was no smile on his face at the moment. In the entire basement, except for the sound of Ling Wen's vomiting, there was no other sound. Good kill. Zhao Yulong said softly. Good, good, good. But the last word sent out waves of echo throughout the basement. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 92. Zhao Yulong did not stay in the basement for too long. After all, it would be difficult for anyone to stay in that kind of place for too long without changing their expression. Ling Wen had vomited until his face turned pale. Zhao Yulong seemed a bit surprised by Yilin's calmness, and there was a hint of deep thought in his eyes when he looked at Yilin. Everything hidden behind Xiao Mo is a new version of memory for Yilin. After all, Yilin will not have the opportunity to have too much contact with the Gospel Society in the future, and she does not know how much unknown darkness is hidden behind the Gospel Society. Perhaps what's in Xiao Mo's basement is just the tip of the iceberg. Yilin thought about it carefully. In fact, after the collapse of human social order in the future, the most precious thing is life. But the most worthless thing is also life. The heart is as high as the sky, and the fate is as low as an ant. No one can guarantee that they will survive until the next day. In that context, the Gospel Society naturally has a large amount of materials to transform materials into mechanical life. When passing Xiao Mo's body, Zhao Yulong had no expression on his face, stepped on Xiao Mo's face, and walked over. By the way, he carefully warned the stunned field personnel behind him, "Attention, everyone, seal off this mountain and don't let anyone in." Also, the identities of these corpses have not yet been confirmed, so be careful to protect all remains, especially Xiao Mo's body, do you understand? After saying that, Zhao Yulong seemed to be upset and stepped on him again before leaving. Field Team. Yilin. Xiao Mo. This night was very long. This is even more true for Yilin. While in the car, Yilin was too lazy to struggle and let Zhao Yulong drive him to escort him, while Yilin leaned on the back seat and fell asleep. I don't know how much time passed. When Yilin squinted his eyes and was awakened from a deep sleep, Zhao Yulong's big face suddenly appeared in front of him. Unexpectedly, the destination of this train was the luxurious Jing'an Hotel in Qingcheng. Zhao Yulong quickly opened a room for Yilin and Ling Win. He didn't say much along the way, and he didn't even treat Yilin as prisoners. He just chatted and brought Yilin to the room. The room is fully equipped and even equipped with an AI smart butler. As soon as you step into the room, melodious classical music will automatically fill your ears. You are the most beautiful cloud in my heart, let me keep you with my heart. Ugh, so refreshing. Could this be the hotel where Molly lives? Yilin looked at Zhao Yulong with a half smile. Zhao Yulong smiled. At this moment, he seemed to have forgotten what happened in the Xiao family, and he chuckled, "You may not know, that ant likes to do things, and people from the special team are not allowed to follow, but the team leader insists on letting me follow. If that little ant is allowed to follow, if my ant knows that I am also in Qingcheng, so, brother Yilin, please hand over your mobile phone, and tonight, hey, I will trouble you to keep it a secret from that ant for the time being." Yilin was silent for a moment and smiled. Without saying anything else, he and Ling Win handed over the communication tools to Zhao Yulong for safekeeping. Zhao Yulong breathed a sigh of relief, although the final outcome of Yilin's treatment has not yet been determined. But as long as I report what I saw and heard in Xiao Mo's basement. Forget it, let the team leader decide. Zhao Yulong didn't dare to make random guesses. After a few words of advice, Zhao Yulong only left one sentence. Let's rest first. If anything happens, we'll talk about it tomorrow when the team leader comes back. In short, I will report everything we find in Xiao's house truthfully. After saying that, he winked at Yilin, showing a tacit expression. The end. Just before closing the door, Zhao Yulong seemed a little worried, and turned back and whispered, "By the way, you must not let that ant know that we quietly followed her to Qingcheng." "No problem, I will never tell her." "Ensure." "I swear." Yilin assured with a smile. Then it settled happily. Only then did Zhao Yulong leave with peace of mind. 3 minutes later. Yilin seemed to be out of breath when speaking, and suddenly spoke to the empty room. "But if she knows it herself, it has nothing to do with me, right?" Ling Win was stunned. He lowered his head subconsciously, thinking that Yilin was talking to him. "Wu Yan, you go to the room first." No matter what the noise is, ignore it. Although Ling Wen was confused, he did not hesitate and entered the room directly and locked the door. This luxury hotel is great. The twin room is separated into 2 single rooms, ensuring everyone's privacy. As for the price, it wasn't Yilin who paid anyway. Yilin was left alone in the hall. Yilin sat down on the sofa, crossed her legs, and slowly brewed a pot of tea. Another 2 minutes passed. Yilin raised her head and smiled at the big screen in front of her. Do you really think I didn't notice you peeking? Meng Meng. Hiss. The screen in front of him suddenly lit up. Molly sat angrily on the soft bed, staring at Yilin through the screen. Another moment passed. Molly couldn't help but said, "How did you find out? It doesn't make sense. This guy didn't even touch the computer and his phone was confiscated. How did he find out that she had hacked into the AI system? Could it be that her level had dropped unknowingly to the point where even Yilin could notice it? Isn't it too miserable? Guess." Guess, Molly was slightly startled. Yilin chuckled, "When my phone was still on me, you should have located it, right? When you found my location and arrived at Jing'an Hotel, you can guess what you will do with a little guessing. Although this hotel's security algorithm is very high, it should only take a few minutes for you to find out which room I am staying in. It should be very simple. TCH, you're the only smart one." Molly pouted, wondering why this guy had so many twists and turns in his mind. "By the way, what did you find at the Xiao family later? Why is Lao Zhao's tone a little weird?" Yilin was silent for a moment, deciding not to describe the scene at that time. He just said lightly, "Xiao Mo is not a good person. A lot of evidence of his crime was found in Xiao's family." As expected, Molly didn't think much about it, but her tone was a little more excited. "So, you took care of so many people, is it considered fighting crime? My grandfather won't pursue it, right?" Yilin smiled bitterly, "You think too simply. Before the order is broken, no one can be an outlaw, not even us. Do you think the special group is just a living wage? That. Haha, it doesn't matter. I can probably guess what your grandfather will do with me." Molly was startled for a moment, and then suddenly asked in a strange tone, "Wait, so you actually know my grandpa very well? You are such a weak soul, how many things are you hiding from me? Why does this tone of voice sound so unpleasant? There shouldn't be much left, right?" There were too many things, and Yilin was not sure for a while. Molly hummed and did not continue to dwell too much on such a trivial matter. After a few more brief chats, Molly couldn't help but yawn, squinted her eyes and said, "Don't look at my grandpa like that. My grandpa is actually quite easy to get along with." Yilin remained silent. "Just slap someone to death with a slap, it's neat and tidy, and it's really not difficult to get along with. The big deal, forget it, let's talk about it later." Molly went barefoot and turned off the camera with her feet. Pachi. The screen in front of me suddenly turned off. Zhao Yulong was in the smoking area, smoking silently. Sudden. His phone suddenly rang. But it's not the familiar ringtone. A groan that made people blush resounded through the night sky. "Aha, aha, aha." This sound frightened Zhao Yulong's expression, but no matter what Zhao Yulong did, he could not turn off the sound. Yilin, you actually tricked me." A night of silence. The next day, Yilin slept soundly. There was a bang at the door. Yilin was so shocked that she jumped up from the bed. Enemy attack. Yilin found the blood jasmine almost immediately. When Mo Rendi and Zhao Yulong walked into the room, Yilin looked at the shattered door speechlessly, speechless. Ling Wen also rushed out of the room immediately. The speed is slower than Yilin. Mo Rendi had an expressionless face, still wearing the dark kung fu robe and cloth shoes, walking towards Yilin step by step. Amorendi's footsteps were very gentle and landed on the luxurious artificial carpet without making any sound. But facing Amorendi's indifferent expression, Yulin actually felt like she was being overwhelmed. Anger. Yes. This emotion is anger. And it was extremely suppressed anger. Yulin even had a feeling that if Amorendi hadn't deliberately suppressed him, these footsteps would have crushed the floor under his feet. But fortunately, the anger in Amorendi's heart was not directed at Yulin. The terrifying sense of oppression went away as quickly as it came. His eyes blurred, and before Yulin could recover, Amorendi had already arrived in front of Yulin. He only said 3 words. Good kill. Yulin breathed a sigh of relief. But Amorendi's voice rose a little higher, although you kill the people who deserve to be killed, you are not a law enforcer. So. Yulin's expression quickly calmed down and she asked. Amorendi looked deeply at Yulin. Behind him, Zhao Yulong looked resentful. Baffling. He handed a small notebook with a black cover to Yulin, and then Amorendi continued, unless you become a law enforcer. So, you want me to join the special group? Hee, smart. Yulin took the black ID from Zhao Yulong. When she opened it, Yulin was slightly startled, and then quickly closed it again. You've even given me the documents, how can I still refuse? Zhao Yulong pursed his lips behind Amorendi, then winked at Yulin and said, of course you have the right to refuse. Then he was slapped to death by the team leader, right? The corners of Yulin's mouth twitched slightly. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. However, Yulin had already speculated on this result. Based on his understanding of the real world, after Xiao Yi's identity as a reformer is exposed, it will inevitably lead to an investigation by the special team. Plus Molly's special background. However, with this level of identity, some of the next actions will be much more convenient. The follow-up plan needs to be adjusted again. To prevent that doomsday, it would be difficult, very difficult, with Yulin's strength alone. Therefore, more detailed planning must be made. Think before you act. There is absolutely no room for error. Otherwise, it is very likely that the same mistakes will be repeated. He has no plans for the time being to tell Amorendi and Zhao Yulong about the doomsday coming. Maybe, it's not the time yet. Moreover, if more people knew about his rebirth from other time and space, many unpredictable variables would increase. The risk is too great. Even if he told them now, it would not be of any benefit to Yulin's plan for the time being. On the contrary, it will affect the whole body and lead to many unpredictable consequences. Under the chain reaction, the development of things may be beyond Yulin's control. Now, what happened around Yulin has begun to deviate from the trajectory of another timeline. Yulin became an apostle ahead of schedule. Met Molly in advance. We also made contact with the special group in advance. Just like all time traveler stories, after traveling through time, the so-called butterfly effect is gradually caused. Everything Yulin did after her rebirth, in just 1 month, had already led to the destruction of the Xiao family. Next, future events will definitely change one after another. Yulin is not a god, nor is he God. It is impossible to predict the future accurately. As long as we are human, there will be oversights. There are also limits to what humans can reach. Therefore, Yulin could only take steps step by step, think twice before acting, try to take all possibilities into consideration, and reverse the hopeless future step by step. Yulin secretly planned in her heart. But on the surface he remained calm. I agreed, but I have a request. Zhao Yulong's eyes widened when he heard this. How dare you make demands? I won't leave Qingcheng for a short time. So. Zhao Yulong's mouth moved, and he was about to say something. Amorendi smiled faintly and waved his hand. Okay, I'm sure. What Yulin didn't expect was that after becoming a member of the special team, Her first mission would come as soon as she said it. Just, keep Molly safe. Just as Yulin had guessed before, although Molly found an excuse to sneak back to Qingcheng, she did have serious business to do. As mentioned before, in addition to scientific research and hacking, Molly also has another identity. Famous tower researcher. The paper that proved the existence of the Forbidden Sky Zone, to the sky that humanity will eventually lose, was the conclusion that Molly came to after being bored and calculating various data in 2114. It's more out of interest. That year, Molly was only 12 years old. That paper caused a sensation in the emerging academic field around the world, the tower academic community. In 2111, that is, 10 years ago, 4 towers appeared out of thin air. Along with the starry night, all the satellites fell. Human society, which is highly technologically advanced, was like being blinded overnight and was knocked back to the ground from the sky. From that day on, humans were unable to fly, launch missiles, or observe the weather through satellites. It's like confirming a certain classical mythology story. A certain hero was too close to the sun, and his wings made of wax melted and fell to the ground. That day was a huge setback for human technological civilization. It was also from that day that the tower study craze started. Theory of divine punishment, theory of doomsday, theory of prehistoric civilization, theory of alien technology. Countless scholars and theologians have been arguing about the origin of the 4 towers. There are even some religions centered on towers. In short, the world is in chaos. To this day, Longwo still sends investigation teams from time to time to approach the surroundings of the tower to investigate the tower. Although he knows that the investigation may not yield results, he still has not given up. After all, such a mysterious existence is located on several continents on the Earth. Even though the world has gradually become accustomed to the existence of towers and has even developed a tourism industry related to towers, but the existence of 4 towers is like a stuck in the throat. It makes one unable to feel completely at ease. Human beings have been accustomed to fear and awe of the unknown since ancient times. This time, Molly also brought a team of tower researchers to the Tower of Death for observation and investigation. Yulin's first mission is to be responsible for the safety of this investigation team. Yulin thought about this task and did not refuse. There was no reason to refuse, so he readily agreed. Amorendi was also very satisfied to see Yulin being so high-spirited. Before leaving, Amorendi glared at Yulin and warned, "If you dare to bully my good granddaughter, I will beat you to death." You know, very cruel. Yulin knew very well that Amorendi was not threatening. Once someone bullies Molly, he will really beat them to death. Very cruel. After Amorendi left, Zhao Yulong returned to his carefree appearance. "Hey, now that the team leader is gone, the next conversation is between us. As he spoke, Zhao Yulong slowly walked to the wall under Ling Wen's surprised gaze. "That's right, just leave." Zhao Yulong seemed to ignore gravity and walked directly to the wall step by step, and firmly placed his feet on the wall, his whole body parallel to the ground, looking at Yulin and Ling Wen, grinning. "Add a friend." Zhao Yulong smiled. Looking at the extra Zhao Yulong in the communication list, Yulin silently closed the communication panel. Although Yulin didn't understand why Zhao Yulong looked at her with a resentful look before leaving. But no matter what, after joining the special group, the murder case of the Xiao family in Qingcheng was finally completely solved. Criminals become law enforcers. Crime has also become merit. Anyway, it's quite ironic. Before Zhao Yulong left, Yulin also learned about the follow-up of the Xiao Mo incident from the sidelines. Although Yulin had a good sleep last night, Zhao Yulong almost didn't sleep all night because of the darkness hidden in Xiao Mo's basement. Across the country, all industries related to Xiao Mo were uprooted overnight. Although Zhao Yulong only briefly mentioned the various inhumane human experiments hidden deeper, Yulin also roughly imagined the shocking scenes from Zhao Yulong's words. The underground of the Xiao family's mansion in Qingcheng is just the tip of the iceberg for such experiments. No wonder the old man lost his temper. Yulin finally realized it. After all, Amo Rendi's strength is the result of hard training. It's not like in a Nigiri mountain, where Mai Oda added the ghost energy value to the strength attribute in one breath. Oda Mai couldn't control the sudden surge in power, so her power leaked out. This is also proof that she cannot control her power. But Amo Ren enemy is different. He has practiced ancient martial arts to the extreme. It can be said that he is the first person in the ancient martial arts of the Dragon Kingdom. There will never be a situation where the importance cannot be grasped. But after hearing about the human experiment, it is understandable that I became angry and acted a little more harshly. Molly also seemed to have heard that Yuren would become a bodyguard and seemed very happy. After all, Yulin became a member of the special group and became one of her own. In her words, she could finally study Yulin, a rare traveler experimental material, openly. After solving the Xiao Mo incident, Yulin finally had some time to spare and opened the communication list again. Li Chang'e didn't know whether it was because he was too idle or something else, but he actually sent an unread messages. When I opened it, I saw a long list of voice messages. There are also some homemade emoticons mixed in from time to time. Yulin was so confused that she cleared Li Chang'e's information without saying a word. After thinking for a moment, he only replied 3 sentences. Screen refreshed without reply. No voice response. The expression doesn't return. After sending these 3 messages, Yulin closed the communication list and kept out of sight. Next. Yulin's heart moved, and she opened the phone she took back from Zhao Yulong and took a look. The date display is August 3, 2121. In the blink of an eye, it has been nearly a month since Yulin killed Henry Zhang and became an apostle. This time is like a girl's youth, which passes inexplicably just by rubbing it. Is there a retest in 2 days? Yulin finally remembered this matter. After joining the special group, there are several follow-up plans that need to be fine-tuned. Nowadays, Yulin no longer intends to use the harmless identity of a college student to hide herself from others. After having the status of special group, although there are some more restrictions, it also brings a lot of convenience in doing things. After spending 15 minutes carefully weighing the pros and cons, Yulin nodded secretly. Well, this wave is not a loss. When things settle down, we can slowly make further plans. Let's make 20 plans first. As soon as Yulin thought of making a plan, she immediately became energetic. Before leaving, Yulin came to Molly's room. Wearing loose cartoon pajamas, with messy hair and sleepy eyes, Molly opened the door. When she saw Ling Wen standing behind Yulin like a ghost, Molly was startled and slammed the door. Yulin smiled bitterly and waited at the door for a full half-hour. After Molly finished cleaning up briefly, she invited Yulin and Ling Wen in. Without waiting for Molly to ask questions, Yulin said straight to the point, "His name is Ling Wen now. Please ask Miss Mo to arrange a new identity for him. The author's bacteria are going to be sold badly. My results are dismal, please subscribe and vote." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 93. When Molly heard this, she immediately curled her lips in displeasure. Why? Can you please stop ordering me around all day long? I'm very busy too, okay. Besides, it's very troublesome to completely change a person's identity. There seemed to be some reluctance. Molly is actually very simple-minded. She helped Yulin so much, just for Yulin's sake. But Yulin suddenly asked her to help a stranger she didn't know, and she was a little unhappy at first. Anyone who wants her help can line up from Chengcheng to the Pacific coast. This is for no reason. Why? It's paid. Yilin smiled slightly. This time, I won't do it even if I'm paid. This kind of thing is a bit troublesome. Besides, don't think I don't know. You don't have much money left in your account. Want to deceive me? Molly refused. After all, it's not a matter of life and death. Aren't you a Taurus? Yilin was a little strange. With the Taurus personality, Molly's reaction surprised Yilin. What's wrong, Taurus? Did Taurus offend you? Molly's almond-shaped eyes widened, her hands on her hips, her bare feet on the table, full of momentum. These long legs, when raised up, are indeed very intimidating. Quite tempting too. The snow-white arc made Yilin look at it twice before thinking silently. This ant's character can't be hardened. 10 seconds later, Yilin flipped his palm, and a black vial appeared in his hand. Molly couldn't help but be startled. There was no reaction at once. But Yilin's next words instantly aroused Molly's interest. I discovered this from fighting monsters in the dungeon. Do you want to try it? Yilin's smile was a little more playful. When he met Molly again in this timeline, Yilin used metaphorical words such as dungeon, elite monster and player to explain things about the other world to Molly. So as soon as these words came out, Molly instantly understood the deep meaning of Yilin's words. It turned out to be a prop brought back from that place. What kind of magical prop is this? What does it do? Can ordinary people use it? Well, if I have to say it, this is a kind of facial mask. Facial mask. Molly was stunned when she heard this. In that place, you can even explode facial masks while fighting monsters? What kind of ghost place is it? When I opened the lid, I saw that the inside was dark and smelled suspiciously. Molly covered her nose in disbelief. Are you sure this is a facial mask? It's a scam, right? Yilin sold Li Chang'e without saying a word. Of course, Yilin's words about the other world are also treated as metaphors. Anyway, it's good that you can understand them. Yo-ho! An international superstar was beaten into a pig's head and restored to his original state overnight. Is it true? Molly didn't seem to have much interest in who this pig-headed actor was. She curiously took the bottle from Yilin, and seemed to be a little worried. Maybe it's somewhat credible to say that this is undersea mud, a facial mask? Apologize to all the facial masks in the world, Hunden. Are you sure? I have sensitive skin. Are you sure I can use it? Although Molly rarely wears makeup, she has to pay attention to her face after all. Yilin stared at Molly's face seriously for 10 seconds. Molly looked away uncomfortably. I am sure. Don't say you have sensitive skin. It can be used even if you have corpse spots. Without saying anything, Molly raised her foot and kicked Yilin in the face. Specialty Ghost Oil. Grade Rare. Effect Whitening. Explanation: this specialty product from a Nigiri mountain can make your skin fair and smooth when applied to it. It also has the effect of promoting wound healing. Number of uses, 20/20. Yilin already knew the properties of specialty ghost oil. The mask is the essence. Healing wounds is just a bonus feature. Although Yilin's metaphor is a bit inappropriate. But Molly was relieved. It can be used even if you have cadaverous spots, but what about sensitive skin? So Molly treated the specialty ghost oil like Pacific Sea mud and applied it evenly on her face. After applying the ghost oil, Molly felt as if her entire face was soaked in some kind of liquid. The coolness was absorbed into the skin through every tiny pore, without any discomfort. On the contrary, it feels quite comfortable. Now Molly was convinced. After all, it was produced by that place and it always had some miraculous effects that cannot be explained by science. Thinking of this, Molly couldn't help but look forward to it. When you have time, take it back to the laboratory to analyze the molecular structure of the facial mask. Molly made a small calculation quietly. Molly walked out of the bathroom humming a song with a black face, and then she remembered that Yilin seemed to have something to ask this girl for just now. You just said, what are you going to do? Molly didn't even take a computer, she just used her mobile phone to edit a bunch of messages and sent them out. All right. After a while, after receiving the reply, Molly stretched, closed her eyes and rested her mind, looking forward to the effect of the facial mask after applying it. Finished. Yilin was angry. Didn't you say it's troublesome? Yes. It's very troublesome. Molly raised the corner of her mouth with a sly arc, and said slowly, it's very troublesome, doesn't mean it's difficult. Yilin finally resisted the urge to fight back. After settling the issue of Ling Wen's new identity, Yilin said goodbye to Molly and left Jing'an Hotel. By the way, after informing Molly about the side effects of the specialty ghost oil, Molly became more interested in the dark bottle of treasure in her hand. Yilin Ao is no better than Miss Mo, so she has no choice but to give up and let her toss her around. But before leaving, Yilin also warned carefully not to use it all up, and secondly to never let others know about the existence of the specialty ghost oil. After all, this thing comes from the other world. If it leaks out, it will be a trouble after all. After leaving Jing'an Hotel, Ling Wen followed Yilin all the way. But his expression seemed a little hesitant. Yilin had actually noticed long ago that Ling Wen had always had an expression on his face since he left Jing'an Hotel. You want to go home and see? Yilin thought about it and soon understood what Ling Wen was thinking. Although he survived the catastrophe, became an apostle, and existed beyond ordinary people, no matter what, he still has a bond with the real society, and it will be difficult to completely sever it for a while. Ling Wen froze when he heard the words, but still nodded slowly. Yilin smiled slightly and looked deeply. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Even if you don't follow me, after you become an apostle, you will have no control over your life in the future. There is no benefit to your family from being by your side. In case you make a grudge inside, or even be implicated in your relatives, you have to think carefully. Yilin is by no means an alarmist. The relationship between the apostles is complicated. Maybe 1 second they were friends chatting and drinking, but a minute later, they might become deadly enemies. This is also the reason why when Manny insists on killing Oda Mai in the Ghost Mountain dungeon. Once they become enemies, they will fight to the death. If when Manny lets Oda Mai return to the real world alive, it will cause endless trouble. Of course, Yilin is not afraid of this. His parents have lived abroad for a long time. Due to the special nature of the internet, they rarely have contact with them. This is no different from missing persons. Moreover, the area Yilin is currently registered in is the Tower of Death. Yilin could not leave the area covered by the Tower of Death before reaching the corresponding tower level. For example, if the Tower of Death registered by Yilin belongs to a server, all the apostles he encounters in the Tower of Death are under the jurisdiction of the same server, and no one can leave the server area. In other words, his parents were safe. At the very least, Yilin would not be involved in this circle. But Ling Wen was different. After hearing Yilin's words, Ling Wen understood, with a trace of pain in his eyes. Let's go and take a look. The sunshine approaching noon seemed a bit dazzling. Yilin squinted her eyes and looked up at the sky, her expression neither happy nor sad. But there was indeed a slight tingling sensation in my chest. It was so faint that it was almost impossible to appreciate it, and then it disappeared in a flash. For the apostles, the more they value someone, the more they should stay away from them. This is helpless. Ling Wen's former home was in the most prosperous area in the center of Qingcheng City. Although Qingcheng is only a small 18th-tier city, as the most prosperous area in the city center, housing prices here are expensive. It can be seen that Ling Wen had a prosperous and happy family before his death. However, just when Yilin and Ling Wen arrived at the downstairs of the building, only to find that this place was blocked. Countless police cars with dazzling red and blue lights surrounded the building. Could it be? Yilin stepped forward and found that the person standing in the cordon and commanding the scene was an old acquaintance. Yo! Uncle Su. Yilin said hello with a smile. Su Xiong was extremely busy, and when he heard someone calling him from behind, he subconsciously turned his head. Huh? It's you. The moment he saw Yilin, Su Xiong felt as if his messy brain had suddenly short-circuited. There are so many questions in my mind. The explosion that happened last night. Yilin is missing. I suddenly received a notice this morning that all cases in the Xiao family have been forcibly closed. Xiao Mo's file was suddenly classified as a first-level confidential document. All events happened too fast, like a tornado, catching Su Xiong off guard. After this brain short-circuit, Su Xiong ran to Yilin in a few steps, and asked suspiciously across the cordon, "Where did your kid go last night? Do you know that your home was bombed?" "Well, let's talk about this little thing later." Yilin also learned from Zhao Yulong this morning that after the special team intervened, the Xiao Mo incident no longer caused any trouble to Yilin's daily life, so Yilin didn't plan on dwelling too much on this issue. So Yilin changed the subject. "Hey, Uncle Su, have you been promoted? Why haven't you met Aunt Gu?" Su Xiong's brows jumped and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. "Fortunately, it's your Aunt Gu. But, Gu Sinan isn't here. Otherwise, if you dared to say that in front of her, I really don't know how many strokes the word death has. Captain Gu is on sick leave. The implication is that the captain is still the captain. You kid, don't talk nonsense." Sick. Injured, work-related injury. Su Xiong's mind suddenly flashed to the iron lump behind Yilin community, and he didn't dare to say anything, so he waved his hand, a little impatiently. "Something happened here. You have nothing to do and get out of here. Why are you just joining in the fun? Also, regarding the incident where your home was bombed, you can go to the bureau to file a case with me later. I'll see if I can help you apply for some subsidies. To be honest, as a house slave, if my house exploded on the spot, it would be quite miserable to think about it. Right now, 3 freezing cabins specially used to transport and refrigerate corpses slowly descended to the ground from somewhere in the building. The freezing cabin is equipped with a suspended descent element, which can even slowly descend from dozens of floors to the ground without being damaged. Sudden. Ling Wen opened his mouth wide and his whole body was shaken. A white and slender hand was exposed in the transparent glass of one of the freezing chambers. On her ring finger, she also wore an exquisite ring. At this time, other medical staff and police officers came down from upstairs. Carefully placed the 3 cryo chambers. I could only hear them looking at the corpse in the cabin and talking about it. Has the body been examined? After a rough look, the 2 elderly deceased should be an old couple, and a very young girl. Preliminary analysis shows that they both died from high-voltage electric current, and there are no other wounds on their bodies. High-voltage electricity? An accident? It's possible. There are no other traces at the scene, and the detailed report may not come out until later. This girl was quite beautiful. It's a pity that she died at such a young age. Sudden. Ling Wen rushed out. Ho ho ho. He slapped the transparent glass desperately, making strange sounds in his mouth. But not a single word came out. Everyone looked at the scene in surprise and froze in place for a few seconds before the person responsible for maintaining the scene reacted. Someone broke in. Su Xiong was about to take action. A palm gently pressed on Su Xiong's shoulder. Let it be, my friend. Suddenly, Su Xiong found that Yilin's expression was surprisingly calm. There was a hint of maturity that was beyond his age. At this moment, the experienced veteran detective suddenly thought through everything that had happened during this period. It was as if he understood something instantly. Ling Wen slowly knelt on the ground, crying silently, weeping silently. Yilin looked at Ling Wen's back. The back looks a bit rickety. It seemed that in just 1 minute, this man was quickly gnawed by the ruthless years and became much older. Ling Wen knelt down for an hour. Finally, Ling Wen stood up, but his feet staggered and he almost fell to his knees again. But he stood up again with an expressionless face, neither happy nor sad. Su Xiong also waited for a full hour. He hesitated many times and wanted to ask, but did not dare to ask. In the end, Su Xiong decided to retire in peace of mind. Silence is gold. Although Yilin did not explain. But Su Xiong already had a terrible and incredible guess, but he still couldn't ask it out. After he figured everything out, he looked at Yilin's indifferent and calm expression. The same person, the same expression, Su Xiong thought before that he was ordinary and harmless to humans and animals. But now when I look at it, it seems a bit more mysterious. Look at this. Yilin thought for a while, let me handle the follow-up. Ling Wen silently followed Yilin again. The whole person looked like a walking corpse, with no sparkle in his eyes. Like a puppet who only remembers following Yilin, it has lost its soul. After leaving the scene, Yilin didn't explain much to Su Xiong. Based on Su Xiong's experience, Yilin deduced that there was a 65% chance that the old detective could figure everything out. Communication between smart people is always so simple, unpretentious, and boring. Yilin simply informed Zhao Yulong of this matter in the apostle way. Zhao Yulong expressed deep sympathy for Ling Wen's experience, and patted his chest and said that the field personnel of the special team would come to handle the matter in the future and hand over to Su Xiong and others. As for the subsequent processing results, it has nothing to do with Yilin. Yilin took the confused Ling Wen directly to the self-service rental center. After entering the location of the lot, Yilin selected a room on the screen. It's a bit troublesome to buy another one, so I might as well rent a house. It's convenient, fast, and you don't have to move. Just choose, here. Yilin thought about it and finally decided to stay near Jing'an Hotel. After all, Yilin promised to be the bodyguard of the investigation team, so Yilin would not neglect it. Near the Jing'an Hotel, there are many special team field personnel responsible for the security of the entire hotel. As long as she does not go out, there should be no problem with Molly's safety. But if it was to go out for investigation, Yilin would need to take action. Led by the chubby-looking AI robot, Yilin arrived at the chosen house. After a brief look at the interior layout, Yilin was satisfied. She didn't find any major faults, so she decisively swiped her fingerprints, paid 3 months' rent in one go, and settled in the new house. In this era, many simple daily tasks can be completed through AI processing, providing a lot of convenience to human life. I think you don't have much luggage. If you need anything, just order it directly. Yilin said to Ling Wen. Ling Wen raised his head, his empty eyes without any fluctuation, then nodded indifferently, and stood aside without making any other movements. Seeing this, Yilin frowned slightly. He suddenly remembered the scene in another timeline where he buried Molly with his own hands. I remember that day, there seemed to be acid rain in the sky. Yilin sat in front of the simple grave for 5 hours. And she also sat beside him for 5 hours. Yilin hid the unpleasantness in her memory, sighed softly, and said nothing more. He suddenly understood Ling Wen's mood at the moment. Maybe this is, the greatest sorrow is the death of one's heart. Not long after Yilin rented a house. There was a slight vibration at the death mark on Yilin's chest. This is a reminder that someone has sent a message through the mailing list. A prompt similar to "You have new news, please check it in time." Yilin opened it and saw a voice message from Zhao Yulong. "Boy, Have you ever heard of gospel meeting? Yilin silently replied with a question mark. Never heard of it? It's nothing. Didn't we clean up Xiaomo's property last night? In a certain encrypted computer, there was an encrypted recording. The content was nothing special, but Xiao Mo seemed to have mentioned a person named. It's an organization of the Evangelical Society, so the old guy shouldn't have joined some strange religion, right? Really? Yilin remained calm. Forget it, that old guy can't let people live in peace even if he dies. Zhao Yulong gritted his teeth and was very disdainful of Xiao Mo's actions. He seemed to be very busy and ended the call in a hurry without continuing to chat. At this time, Xiao Mo seemed not to be too deeply involved with the Evangelical Society, otherwise, Zhao Yulong would not have discovered only such a trivial clue. The reason why Yilin didn't tell anyone about the evangelical meeting was because he had his own ideas. First, he himself doesn't know much about the Evangelical Society. After all, the Evangelical Society will also be an extremely mysterious organization in the future. Second, Yilin currently does not intend to let anyone else know the secret that he was reborn from another doomsday timeline, except for Molly. After all, there is still some time until the end. I have to admit that although Molly is a little tempered and unreliable, she is indeed an out-and-out genius. Molly is indispensable for some of Yilin's plans. There's a lot going on. I can only stroke it slowly. Yilin thought for a while and boiled a pot of hot tea. Tear open a box of instant coffee from the cabinet. Well, it hasn't expired yet. After slowly brewing a cup of hot instant coffee, Yilin took a sip and sat down. Ling Wen was seen standing silently in the corner with his head lowered, without saying a word. Like a confused doll. Yilin thought for a moment and didn't intend to carry Ling Wen behind her back, so she took out a card from the storage space. Attached spirit card, red and white. Don't forget to comment and vote while reading the book I Love You. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 94. On the card, there was a beautiful woman with red clothes and white hair, her eyes closed, and a lively and lovely girl in white in her arms. His expression was full of tenderness. Just from the card, Yilin felt a breathtaking beauty. If Yilin had not personally experienced the ghost hunting battle in Gawu Mountain, it might be difficult for Yilin to associate the mother and daughter on the card with the two fierce ghosts in Gawu Mountain. Of course, according to Naixiu, Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoi are not related by blood. It was only after they died that they turned into ghosts, lost all their memories of being human, and became mother and daughter. Maybe it's just a setting. It does not matter. Or maybe it's because they have the same bond, so they established a special connection. The spirit card is an ultra-rare card that can give a weapon a soul. Even in the circle of future apostles, spirit cards are extremely rare and can be said to be hard to find. Weapons that are possessed by spirits can possess all kinds of strange abilities and are ever-changing. Different changes will occur depending on the type of spirit attached. Each spirit card has a unique existence. Each spirit card also hides a unique story. And how to obtain the spirit card, there is no accurate explanation in the end of the world. But Yilin speculated that there are at least two conditions for obtaining the spirit card from the trial. First, the customs clearance evaluation level is at least SS level. Second, complete the only hidden mission throughout the entire plot trial. After meeting the above two conditions, the rest depends on your appearance. Those with black faces have nothing. Oyu Huang has it all. And it turns out to be a rare twin soul. Yilin stared at the lifelike card in her hand, feeling a little surprised. As far as Yilin knows, most of each spirit card contains only one spirit. Yilin had also heard of the existence of twin souls. But it is said that most of them are twins, or the kind that are enemies of life and death, and can be merged into the same card to form a twin soul enchanted card. It is extremely rare for people like Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoi, who had no blood relationship during their lives, to form twin souls with spirit cards. For this situation, it seems that only Bond can explain it. Maybe, this is love. Yulin silently took another sip of coffee. Looking at the heat rising from the cup, Yulin took out blood jasmine with her other hand. Seeing Yulin's movements, Ling Wen, who was behind Yulin, his empty eyes wavered slightly, and he turned his head towards Yulin little by little. Yulin smiled slightly. Crushed the enchantment card in his hand. The moment the possessed spirit card was crushed, it turned into two rays of red and white light, annihilated into countless red and white light spots in the void, and then completely engulfed in the blood jasmine. The originally dark red blood jasmine turned out to be much brighter after using the spirit enchantment card, as red as hot blood. On the blade, there is a pure white texture that wraps around the blade, giving the blood red blade an air of mystery and simplicity. And a line of text also appeared in front of Yulin's eyes. The spirit attachment is successful. Please ask Apostle 1010 to name the spirit enchanted weapon. Blood jasmine. Named successfully. Apostle 1010 please explore how to use the spirit enchanted weapon by yourself. Note, spirit enchanted weapons may backfire on the host, please be careful to get along well with spirits. Note, spirit enchanted weapons may backfire on the host, please be careful to get along well with spirits. Note, spirit enchanted weapons may backfire on the host, please be careful to get along well with spirits. Okay, this is not a word count, but an important thing, and it really needs to be said 3 times. After blood jasmine is successfully possessed, it is equivalent to being registered and certified by the tower, and can be turned into a card at any time, which is much more convenient. Spiritual weapon blood jasmine. Soul binding Yulin. Episode level E level, next level, 0/100. Spirit possessing ability form change, summoning spirits, unlocked, unlocked, unlocked. Spiritual attributes add 5% sharpness, add 5% toughness, add 5% spirit, add 5% strength. Yulin looked at the new form of blood jasmine, looked at the attribute panel, and was slightly stunned. It's actually a spirit enchanted weapon with dual attributes of spiritual attribute and strength attribute. In another timeline, Yulin was also lucky enough to get a spirit card. The spirit attached to the spirit card was a guy who talked a lot. Yulin found that guy a bit annoying and almost never called him out. The attributes of that card are just the regular ones plus sharpness, toughness, and spiritual attributes. In addition to its spiritual attributes, this card also has added strength. Could it be? Yulin had a guess in her mind. The attributes of the possessed spirit are related to the attributes of the spirit during its lifetime. In other words, Yulin's card is a rare twin soul card, which may have something to do with it. After Yulin realized this, she couldn't help but chuckle. Say calling spirits silently in your mind. In an instant, 2 rays of light, one red and one white, emerged from the blood jasmine, fell in front of Yulin, and gradually condensed into 2 illusory figures. It's Nai Hongxiu, and Bai Xiaoai. After using the spirit summoning skill of the enchanted weapon, Yulin felt that her spiritual energy value suddenly dropped. Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoai, one on the left and one on the right, stood tall and graceful, floating quietly on both sides of Yulin. The two of them, no, the 2 spirits are almost transparent, like ghosts, without touching the ground, as if they do not exist in this world. After Nai Hongxiu was summoned, she bowed to Yulin Yingying, looking as gentle as water, and said with a slight smile, I, Nai Hongxiu, have met my master. Is this outside Giwu Mountain? Bai Xiaoai's eyes flashed with excitement, and she floated around the room, very happy. Xiaoai, come and meet the master soon. Nai Hongxiu scolded lightly, his tone a little more stern. I know. Bai Xiaoai reluctantly floated down from the air, floated in front of Yulin, and said with a smile, Xiao Ai has met the master. Yilin looked calm, looked at the two almost transparent spirits, and said slowly, I think you should understand your situation now, right? Although the spirit body that becomes a possessed spirit still has the memory of life, at the moment of becoming a possessed spirit, the tower will instill the corresponding rules and memories into them, so that the spirit body can adapt to its new identity more quickly. I understand. Nai Hongxiu's expression remained unchanged and he smiled faintly. Bai Xiaoi pouted, looking a little unhappy, in other words, we are all yours, right? It's a spirit, Yilin corrected. Although there are many benefits to possessing a spirit, as Tower warns, the spirit body may backfire on the host. After all, they have memories. As the level of the spirit body increases, it can even condense into a physical entity in the later stages. If the spirit has a fierce personality and cannot get along with the host, it will turn back on the host in a matter of seconds. Of course, Yilin would never let such a bloody thing happen to herself. Yilin smiled slightly. In order to help you adapt to your new identity, I will help you change your name from now on. Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoi both looked startled. Yilin pointed at Nai Hongxiu, Xiao Hong. Nai Hongxiu. After a while, Nai Hongxiu said with a look of resentment, thank you, master. Bai Xiaoi's spiritual body was shocked. Suddenly I had an ominous premonition. As for you. Yilin curled her lips and said, Xiao Bai. Bai Xiaoi. Master Ghost Hunter, oh no, master, do we have any grudges? Xiao Bai burst into tears. Yilin chuckled, anyway, calling me Xiao just doesn't work. Yilin has always been satisfied with her naming taste. Now Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiao are two spirits, but they are only the lowest E-level spirits. Apart from being able to show off your presence or dance, it is of no use at the moment. Haha, of course it has its uses. Yilin suddenly remembered the specialness of spirit. Couldn't help but smile. Ignoring the resentful looks of the two spirits, Yilin took them back with her backhand. As for the other ability of the possessed weapon, form change, although Yilin is somewhat looking forward to it, it is impossible to test it here. We can only wait until we have a chance. It only took a few minutes for the red and white spirits to appear, but the cup in front of Yilin was still radiating heat. However, Yilin's spiritual energy value was actually consumed by nearly half. Twin souls have higher requirements for the host's spiritual energy, Yilin frowned slightly. But soon, it relaxed. As high as possible. Anyway, he is taking the spiritual route, and his spiritual energy can afford to be used up. At last. Yilin touched her forehead. In that place, there was a piece of skin that felt a little weird. Although there is no difference on the surface, that place is different. If I had to describe it, it felt like a piece of dog skin plaster was applied to it. Slightly cool to the touch. An itchy feeling. And every time Yilin touches the piece of human skin on his forehead, the attributes of human skin will appear in front of his eyes. Blame. Great unknown. Effect unknown. Explanation: just pretend it doesn't exist, maybe it's just an ordinary piece of dead skin that can't be picked off. Not only that, this piece of human skin attached to the forehead was completely integrated with Yilin's skin. It was really impossible to pick it off. In fact, Yilin has tried the correct way to open the human skin more than once. But all ended in failure. It seems like what the description says. Maybe it's just an ordinary piece of dead skin. Who believes it? Yilin always felt a little uneasy about the unknown and uncontrollable existence. Moreover, this unknown existence is closely connected with him, regardless of each other. It was difficult for him not to think about the hidden meaning of this. Yilin still remembers the screams of hell that lingered in his ears the moment he opened the box during the Giwu Mountain trial. The boundless malice and evil thoughts emanating from the strange piece of human skin in the box are still vivid in Yilin's mind. Of course, what happened just yesterday must be vividly remembered. Such a thing with no known origin and unclear attribute description was stuck to her forehead and could not be picked out, which really made it difficult for Yilin to feel at ease. But there is nothing we can do. I can't pick it off and can't figure it out. So far, apart from the weird feeling, I don't feel any other discomfort. Yilin can only give up temporarily. Through the special group, Yilin has gradually re-entered into the circle of apostles. She can only wait for the right time and then use the energy of the special group to find out information about human skin. Yilin drank all the instant coffee in the cup. He continued to drink a glass of wine. Sitting on the sofa again, I carefully reviewed all the experiences in the Giwu Mountain trial. Ling Wen had been in the corner, witnessing the appearance of Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoi, and then watching the two ghosts disappear, with a bit of shock in his empty eyes. Even after becoming an apostle, Ling Wen had only experienced one trial and had never seen such weird methods. Want to learn? Yilin suddenly turned her head and whispered to Ling Wen, who was not far away. Ling Wen's eyes wavered slightly, but he made no move. It's a pity that I can't teach you either. Yilin chuckled. As an apostle, if you want to go further and stand higher, you can only rely on yourself. Yilin stood up and walked to Ling Wen. He knew how Ling Wen was feeling at this time. There seems to be nothing in this world that is worthy of his nostalgia. His previous desire to survive has completely disappeared in Ling Wen's eyes. He lost any reason to continue living in this world. So, then give him a reason to live. Take out that mask. Although Ling Wen didn't understand why Yilin did this, he still followed the instructions and took out the shadow face from the storage space. Oh, number 99. Yilin used blood jasmine to lightly and slowly trace the mask. Ling Wen's pupils shrank slightly. The knife mark that Yilin made on the mask happened to be diagonally across the number 99, as if it was split into two halves. Yilin said slowly, as early as 10 years ago, there was a mysterious man named Bai and a group of shadows wandering in the darkness, forming a killer organization all over the world. Ling Wen suddenly opened his eyes wide. White Shadow Club. Yilin returned the scratched mask to Ling Wen and said with a slight smile, this killer organization called White Shadow Club completely disappeared from the world after the Night of the Falling Stars 10 years ago. Disappear and no one can contact this organization again. The most terrifying thing about this organization is its internal system. There are only 100 shadows as killers. No matter how many people join the White Shadow Club, the number of shadows will not change. It will always be 100 people. In other words, if you want to join the organization, you can only kill one of the shadows, steal his mask, and become another shadow. That's about all I know. Ling Wen raised his head, and flames gradually lit up in his empty eyes. A flame called hatred. Burning. Burn everything. After saying this, Yilin ignored what Ling Wen thought, stretched, and returned to the room. Yilin had already given Ling Wen a reason to live. As for Ling Wen's decision, that was beyond Yilin's control. 10 minutes later. The death mark on Yilin's chest shook slightly. When I opened the communication list, I saw that it was Ling Wen. What do you want me to do for you? Yilin smiled. He slowly closed his eyes. After a few seconds, he only replied, you will know in a few days. When Yilin returned to school, the entire class was enveloped in the sadness of the youth graduation season. They took photos, exchanged gifts, gave speeches, expressed their sincere feelings, and even some men and women who had already shown signs of it took advantage of the sad mood to discuss a temporary communication location. In short, it was filled with the sour smell of youth. Yilin is not too interested in these things. After all, including rebirth, Yilin's mentality is close to 30 years old. Old. It's hard to ripple like them again. August 4, 2121. In Yilin's memory, the weather was originally sunny on this day. Why do you remember it so clearly? Just because tomorrow is the day of the retest, Yilin can even clearly remember how uneasy he felt the day before the retest. In order to test higher mental attributes in the retest, Yilin go to bed early on purpose to avoid affecting the test results. But on this timeline, Yilin has embarked on a completely different trajectory. Well, thank you, my good friend Henry Zhang. Yilin was like a little transparent person, no one spoke to her, she just packed her things silently and prepared to return to her new residence. Today. It's different from what I remember. Weather, sunny to cloudy, cloudy to light rain. Yilin returned home and her hair was wet from the light rain. As soon as Ling Wen saw Yilin coming back, he walked forward with his head lowered and respectfully handed over a clean towel. Today's Ling Wen is more restrained and silent than yesterday, which makes Yilin feel like an extinct volcano. But one day, it may completely explode. By then, it will be so earth-shattering. After taking a shower, Yilin decided to treat herself well and ordered an expensive takeaway. Before waiting for the takeaway AI robot to deliver to her door, Yilin connected Tianzhu 1, turned on the TV, and watched the latest news. It just so happened that the news broadcast at 6:30 was mentioning the seizure of Xiaomo's property. However, in the news, it seems that due to the intervention of the special group, the collapse of Xiaomo's entire industrial chain was brushed aside with the phrase investment failure without any in-depth reports. After all, the darkness behind the Xiao family cannot be exposed. Otherwise, it will cause huge social turmoil. I switched to a few more channels, and it happened to be reported in the news that in different cities, the mortality rate from heart disease is on the rise. I hope that the general public will pay attention to the balance between work and rest, and arrange their work and rest reasonably. Heart attack. Yilin chuckled. All the apostles who died in the other world had only one cause of death when they returned to the real world. Died of sudden cardiac death. And it was sudden cardiac death for which no cause could be found. And it is said that he died peacefully. The Tower of Death is located in the Dragon Kingdom area. Because the Dragon Kingdom is vast, more than 90% of the apostles registered in the Tower of Death server are from the Dragon Kingdom. But because of the harsh conditions for becoming an apostle, the fall of an apostle is just a drop in the bucket compared to the huge population of the Dragon Kingdom. Even in terms of natural mortality statistics, it will not cause too abnormal turbulence. To ordinary people, this is simply a harmless daily probabilistic death event. After briefly browsing the news and finding that there was nothing new, Yilin turned off the screen. After practicing the longe step and strengthening techniques several times as a habit, Yilin took a bath comfortably. As the strength and agility attributes continue to improve, although Yilin is practicing the civilian version of ancient martial arts, he has initially shown his power, with impressive fists and flexible footwork. Of course, now Yilin no longer needs to use ancient martial arts to improve her attributes. The reason why she keeps exercising occasionally is just to make herself familiar with the body with improved attributes faster. Every time the attributes are improved, the body will go through a process of adaptation. Otherwise, it will be like Oda Mai in the Inagiri mountain trial. After her power surges, she will step on one step at a time, unable to perfectly control her power. This is not a good thing. Yilin made a cup of coffee and waited for the takeaway AI robot to come to her door. Soon, the doorbell rang. Oh! Here we come. Yilin took a sip of instant coffee and walked forward to open the door. The moment the door opened, a tall figure bumped directly into Yilin. Ah! The figure let out a scream. Yilin was stunned. The cup containing scalding hot coffee accidentally fell out of her hand and spun into the air. In fact, the moment she heard the scream, Yilin knew that the person who broke in was none other than Molly. Now, after experiencing 2 trials in the inner world, Yilin's agility attribute has grown by leaps and bounds. With his current reaction speed, he can react instantly within 0.5 seconds. His eyes condense and his right hand explores like lightning. He came out and hooked his fingers on the coffee cup spinning in mid-air. However, after the cup went through a Thomas pirouette in mid-air, all the hot coffee in the cup spilled out, and it was about to pour on Molly's head. Oops. Almost subconsciously, Yilin stretched out her other hand towards the hot liquid that was about to fall in mid-air. That almost instinctive action. Molly ran into Yilin's arms and bounced it a bit. The next moment, time seemed to stand still. Molly looked up, stunned. Yilin also froze on the spot. In mid-air, the coffee liquid still emitting steam was strangely still in mid-air. Like a statue. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 95. 5 minutes later. You actually hate the food delivery AI. Do you still have humanity? Are you addicted to playing? Yilin looked dumbfounded at the takeaway that had been knocked to the ground. The fresh meat exuded an alluring aroma, which was a bit of a pity. It's not important. What was that move you just made? Magic. But Molly couldn't forget the coffee liquid that was still in mid-air. Hearing this, Yilin also closed her eyes and recalled the scene just now. Because the spiritual attribute was raised to more than 10 points with the ghost energy buff in the Ghost Mist Mountain, Yilin also naturally unlocked the first layer of spiritual lock and regained control of the power of telekinesis. This ability, for the previously Yilin, was already at his fingertips and extremely proficient. There are even many tricks to play. In fact, as early as 3 years before she was reborn in this timeline, Yilin had tried to use the method in her memory to drive telekinesis. But because the mental attributes were too low at the time, there was no reaction at all. Unable to lift even a grain of gravel. So in the past 3 years, Yilin also gave up efforts in this area. My current mental attributes are only 6.4. Could it be that the first level of mental lock is loose? Yilin stared at the cup on the table. The next second, the empty coffee cup shook slightly. As Yilin activated his telekinesis, his psychic energy value dropped a little to a degree visible to the naked eye. Suddenly, Yilin couldn't help laughing. Hey, Hundan, I want to ask you something. Molly stretched out her white palm and waved it in front of Yilin a few times. She didn't notice the cup shaking slightly. Haha, it's forbidden. Yilin shook his head and didn't explain much. Humph, another forbidden matter. Molly already knew Yilin's identity and roughly understood that Yilin had some weird skills. So although she was as curious as a cat scratching its itch, she was smart enough not to delve deeper. Yilin ordered another takeout and asked casually, I thought it was about time you came to the door. Where are the things? How do you know? Molly's expression was slightly startled. Didn't you promise to help me with the retest? You wouldn't have forgotten it, right? But in fact, after Yilin obtained the status of a member of the special group, even if Molly didn't help, Yilin could solve the problem by herself. It's just a little troublesome. And it requires a little bit of privilege. Moreover, the Xiao family incident has been taken over by the special team, and Gu Xinan and Su Xiong no longer need to investigate the cause of Xiao Yang's death. Furthermore, although Su Xiong didn't say it, he vaguely guessed Yilin's hidden identity. Even if Yilin showed an astonishing improvement in his attributes in the retest, it would only be in the news and not a big deal. It really doesn't work, so this retest is nothing more than an accident. However, Molly didn't think too much about it. Seeing that Yilin had already guessed the purpose of her visit, she didn't hide it anymore and happily took out a small medicine bottle from her bag. I saw a handwritten label on the small bottle. Like Molly's handwriting. N-046. Yilin looked strange and glanced at Molly. No matter how you look at this little bottle, it looks a bit like a legendary one. 3 no products. So the day came for the official retest. Every student's face is full of complex expressions such as nervousness, excitement, and eagerness to try. During the retest, authoritative personnel from specialized certification agencies will come to the class with a special attribute tester to register each student and test their attributes. Everyone is familiar with this process, so there is not much explanation. After entering fingerprints and iris, the tester will automatically read the student's personal information and conduct the test on site. Cannot be faked. It also eliminates the possibility of cheating to some extent. Of course, this is not 100%. For example, Yilin is about to cheat in reverse at this moment. Yilin looked at the translucent pill in her hand. This one is NT-046, specially developed by Molly. At that time, Yilin also asked what the effect of this thing was. But Molly ignored him and refused to talk about life or death. In the end, the question seemed to make her a little impatient, so Molly just said, "You won't understand even if I tell you, but it will help you pass the test smoothly, as long as it doesn't kill you." Staff members in white coats have entered the classroom pushing instruments. Silently locking the classroom door. Locked. Yilin sighed, having no other choice, and quietly swallowed NT-046 while others were not paying attention. Of course, Yilin also prepared a backup plan. If Molly's trick doesn't work, the worst thing is, just use the privileges of the special group and just fool around. Take it 5 minutes early. It takes effect in 2 minutes. The effect lasts for 1 hour. Yilin silently counted the seconds in her mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The staff began to push the instruments and conduct attribute tests one by one. The test method is also very simple. After entering personal information, you only need to cover your palm on the sensing position, and the personal attribute values will be detected in a few seconds. Simple, fast, easy and enjoyable. Compared with the examination system of the last century, this instrument that directly detects body measurements is hundreds of times more efficient. Ha 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 ha. My agility has exceeded 3.5. I can be a surgeon. The mental attribute is only 3.0. Is there something wrong with the instrument? Come on. 3.0 has reached the key line. Still too little for you. My highest strength is only 2.8. It's over now. Some are happy and some are sad. Yilin's expression was calm and she was still counting down the seconds silently. It was as if everything happening around him had nothing to do with him. 100, 101, 102. 102. 102. Yilin was counting and suddenly froze. What comes after 102? It's your turn. Unknowingly, the attribute tester was pushed in front of Yilin. At this moment, Yilin felt as if something had blocked her mind. Her thoughts were disorganized and she couldn't think normally at all. His mind was still stuck among 102, 102, 102. Infinite loop. This classmate. Yilin raised her head, responded casually, and put her palm on it in a daze. At the same time, others also turned their attention here. After a few seconds, the screen began to measure Yilin's attributes line by line. Strength, 2.4. Agility, 3.9. If Yilin had a clear mind now, she would discover one thing. This attribute is exactly the same as the value on the apostle panel. As soon as this number came out, the other students who were watching suddenly took a breath of cold air, and the whole class seemed to explode in an instant, and there was a lot of discussion. Damn it! Yilin's agility seemed to be less than 3.0 in the first test, right? Did this kid take drugs? His progress is too exaggerated. It's so scary. It's so scary. Yilin is stable this time. The agility attribute is so high, a key university is stable. Majors that focus on agility, everyone is rushing to get this score. Everyone cast envious glances at Yulin. Immediately afterwards. Finally, the spiritual attribute also popped up. Spirit. 1.8. The next second, the whole class fell silent. After 1 hour, Yulin silently dialed Molly's phone number. Before Yulin could get angry, Molly burst into gloating laughter on the other end of the phone. How's it going? Did I tell you that I can help you cover up your mental attribute surge problem? Molly, am a genius, wow. Yulin seemed to be able to imagine Molly laughing so hard that she fell on her back. So your codename NT means cerebral palsy. Yulin held the phone tightly. Poker face. Wahahahaha. What kind of ghost medicine is this? Yulin listened to the unbridled laughter on the other end of the phone and resisted the urge to hang up. He. After laughing for a long time, Molly finally regained her breath, and then said, actually, this drug is essentially the latest type of sedative drug, which can suppress the activity of brain waves, but I have no intention of doing so. It was discovered that this kind of drug would cause a decrease in mental attributes after being taken, so I made some improvements. Give me the mask back. Huh? Are you angry? Molly subconsciously touched her slippery face and spoke a little weaker. Yulin thought about it for a while. Although Molly had some elements of prank in this incident, she still managed to fool her into it. The agility attribute increased to 3.9 within 3 years, which can also be explained by diligence. But if the mental attribute is measured to be 6.4, Yulin can guess without guessing that the next days in Qingcheng will definitely be restless. Never mind. Yulin couldn't help laughing when she recalled the interesting things that happened in the classroom. Can't laugh. Unexpectedly, in the days when he was pretending to be an ordinary person, he would leave a legend in Qingcheng High School. Shock. After a certain class of students' heads were caught between the cracks in the door, their mental attributes dropped significantly. What is the truth? Is this a moral decline or a distortion of human nature? It is said that after the results of Yulin's retest came out, this post became very popular in the campus forum. Correct. Yulin didn't intend to dwell on Molly's cerebral palsy movie prank, and her tone changed slightly. When will your investigation team leave out? Molly replied absently, well, it should be mid-August. What? Do you have other things to do? It's not a big deal. Yulin chuckled and said in a calm tone, I may have to leave Qingcheng for 2 days. When I am not here, you should not leave the hotel casually. It is safer when other field personnel are around. And because regarding the follow-up of the Xiao family, Zhao Yulong should not leave yet, if anything happens. Okay, what else can happen? Molly interrupted Yulin impatiently, you can just leave. I'm busy. Do you think I run around like you every day? Yulin didn't ask much about what Molly said she was busy about. After a few more casual instructions, he hung up the phone. The middle of the year. Yulin didn't put down her phone. Lost in thought. Normally, the interval between each time an apostle enters the other world trial is about 1 month. Yulin had just come out of the tower, and there was plenty of time before the next trial. After thinking for a while, Yulin dialed another number. Dean, it's me, Yulin, long time no see. Yes, I've been a little busy lately, haha, you know, I'm in my 3rd year of high school. Is it convenient tomorrow? The next day. Sunny. Ling Wein put on clean and casual clothes and followed Yulin silently. Taking the Daiwang Express line, we arrived at another small county hundreds of kilometers away from Qingcheng. Yuwo County. Due to its remote geographical location, Yuwo County still maintains the style of the late last century and does not have many modern buildings. Pedestrians walk slowly on the road, and from time to time children ran barefoot and played on the street. The moment you walk out of the underground network, you actually have the illusion of traveling back to the end of the last century. In 2121, perhaps only backward counties like Uwa County can still see this classic four-wheel drive mechanical structure of transportation. Yilin swiped her card and got on the bus with familiarity, and got on the four-wheel bus with Ling Win. Almost 2 months. Yilin looked out the window at the scenery that was rapidly flowing backward behind her, and fell into deep thought. Although Ling Win didn't ask much, why Yilin would bring him to such a backward place. But for some reason, he had a vague premonition. This may be the reason why Yilin took action to save him. The county town is small in area and is surrounded by mountain peaks. In the south of Uwa County, there is a clear river. The entire county town stands next to the river, making it feel like a paradise in the world. Looking from a distance, there is a large sunken pit on one of the mountains. It is said to be the landform left behind by the impact of satellite debris during the night of starfall. The county is not large. If you hike, you can circle the county in just half a day. You can also go shopping. This shows how far this county has fallen behind. 10 minutes later, Yilin asked Ling Win to get out of the car. After getting off the bus and walking several hundred meters, Ling Win followed Yilin and came to an old courtyard building. Ling Win raised his head and saw a red sign on the top of the building. Uwa County Welfare Home. Ling Win slowly raised a question mark in his heart. He looked at Yilin's calm profile and still couldn't figure out why Yilin, as a powerful apostle, would come to such a small place. Yo! Look who's here. An old man with white hair and a cane walked towards Yilin with a smile. Yilin smiled and greeted the dean. In the courtyard house, there are many elderly people active in the yard. Some are playing games, some are using VR equipment for outdoor fitness, some are playing retro board games, and there are many children running innocently in the yard. When everyone saw Yilin, they all had bright smiles on their faces and came forward to chat with Yilin. Xiaoliu, have you grown taller again? I remember you can sign up to study next year, right? Uncle Qing, you are using this move incorrectly. When the opponent uses Iori Yagami to release the 8 young girls, you should do this, you see, KO. You brat. You actually helped your Uncle Qing beat me up. Your wings have grown hard, right? Haha, it's just a game, it's just a game. Didn't I see how badly Uncle Qing was tortured by you? Yilin's arrival injected a different kind of vitality into this orphanage. Ling Win witnessed with his own eyes that Yilin was like a simple young man, blending into this happy atmosphere without any sense of disobedience, which actually gave Ling Win a strange feeling in his heart. He couldn't connect the Yilin in front of him with the Yilin he knew. It's like 2 completely different people. Which one is his true face? At this moment, in a corner of the yard, Ling Win noticed a quiet girl wearing small headphones, her eyes closed, the corners of her mouth raised, and a gentle smile. The quiet and gentle posture gives people a feeling of independence from the world. It seemed that no matter who it was, all the restlessness in their hearts would be calmed down instantly the moment they saw the girl. Suddenly, Ling Win noticed something. Yilin started talking to everyone in the orphanage, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but she ignored the quiet girl sitting alone in the corner. This is somewhat unusual. Just when Yilin was happily playing the lift high game with the children in the orphanage, the old dean came over again and left. Xiaolin, if you are busy, you don't have to come all the way. This is actually quite troublesome. Nowhere, it's actually not too much trouble. I just finished the retest yesterday and am free. I also remembered that I haven't been here for a long time, so I came here to take a look. But yes, you people in big cities are under a lot of pressure, especially you, Xiaolin. You are young, and your studies and exercise are your priority. Learn to strengthen your brain, practice martial arts to strengthen your body, and work and rest on time to strengthen your kidneys, he he he. The old dean warned in a long-winded way. Yilin didn't mind, and was used to it. While I was free, I started chatting with the old dean. If this scene fell into the eyes of someone who didn't know why, they might mistakenly think that this was a pair of grandfather and grandson who had a harmonious relationship. By the way, old dean, actually I came here this time to trouble you with something. When the old dean heard this, he immediately became a little unhappy and glared at Yilin. Xiaolin, are you out of touch now? You have taken care of us so much over the years, and your business is also our business, but old man, I'm worried that I can't help you much. Yilin smiled slightly, pointed at Ling Wen, who was silent behind him, and said the reason for coming, I have a friend, his name is Ling Wen, he had an accident some time ago, and he has a throat problem, and he also suffers from it. It's a big blow, so I would like to ask you, Dean, to let him live here for a while. The old dean then raised his head and looked at Ling Wen in surprise. In fact, he had noticed Ling Wen's presence a long time ago, but Ling Wen's expression was stern, and there was an air of indifference about strangers, so the old dean didn't ask in detail before Yilin introduced him. Hearing what Yilin said, the old dean suddenly understood. It turned out to be an accident, no wonder he was lifeless. Life is a long road, and who can guarantee that everything will be smooth sailing? The old dean quickly agreed to this trivial matter. Ling Wen's empty and indifferent eyes moved slightly, but he quickly lowered his head and remained silent, still standing quietly behind Yilin, like a shadow. Old dean, I checked in a lot of small gifts this time. They should arrive after we leave. You can check them out then. Oh, you are always like this, please be polite, please be polite. It's not a big deal, by the way, there are a lot of e-books in it. Remember to supervise the children to read more. Now they are in the golden age of intellectual development. Reading more will help develop their spiritual attributes. The old dean happily agreed. After chatting for a while, the old dean showed a strange smile on his face. He looked at the quiet girl in the corner of the yard and lowered his voice, you are here this time, why don't you go and chat with Xiaoai? It seems like you are here too. You haven't been here for almost 2 months, right? I remember that kid, he even said a few words to you last month. Yilin's pupils shrank slightly, but her expression remained unchanged. She even complained, it's not that you don't know that my personality doesn't get along well with hers. But as he spoke, Yilin slowly walked toward that corner. Yilin slowly walked towards the girl step by step. Very slowly. Very slowly. With a kind of caution that perhaps even Yilin herself didn't notice. When she was still about 10 meters away from the girl, the corner of her mouth curled up and she actually took off her headphones. Then he looked up. Those were a pair of eyes that were so clear and free of dirt. It is as pure as a canvas, black and white, and cannot tolerate any other colors. Xiaolin, is that you? The girl's thin arched eyebrows were slightly frowned, and there was a hint of doubt in her tone. Her eyes fell in front of Yilin, but there was no focus. Yilin knew that Xiao Yi couldn't see with her eyes. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 96. Who else could it be if it wasn't me? Yilin smiled slightly and stepped forward. Ling Yi. Yilin silently read the girl's name in her mind. Sit. The girl smiled lightly, moved her body to the side, patted the bench next to her, and motioned for Yilin to sit down. Yilin did not refuse and sat side by side with the girl. But the distance between their shoulders was about 20 centimeters. After Yilin sat down, she looked forward quietly without speaking. Why, Why did you lie to the dean that you and I don't have the same personalities? Ling Yi's tone was a bit complaining. He. Yilin smiled and didn't explain much. You guy. Seeing that Yilin didn't explain, Ling Yi didn't ask any more questions. Yilin closed her eyes. Enjoy a rare moment of peace. Quiet as water. It was as if beside her, all the troubles, all the pain, all the memories would be diluted by the tranquility around her, and everything would become irrelevant. As long as she's here, that's fine. All is well. You. Ling Yi suddenly turned her head and stared at Yilin. You seem to be a little different. Yilin's fingers trembled slightly. Although she knew that Ling Yi couldn't see, for some reason, when facing her eyes, Yilin always had the illusion that her thoughts were being seen through. She looked away without leaving any trace. What's different? Ling Yi tilted her head, and a strand of soft bangs slipped down. I can't really tell. I feel like the smell on you has become a little different. Smell? Yilin's expression changed slightly. He knew that after Ling Yi suffered from optic atrophy many years ago, her vision deteriorated and she was eventually completely blind. But at the same time, her sense of smell and hearing are much sharper than ordinary people. This smell. Could it be that the smell of blood still lingers on him? Before Yilin went out this morning, she rubbed herself hard. There should be no bloody smell left behind. You have a cold, Yilin said firmly. Bah, you just caught a cold, Ling Yi spat lightly, but did not dwell on the matter for too long. She asked softly, you should have finished the retest, right? How are your results? Which university do you plan to apply for? Is it far from here? Well, fortunately, I have no plans yet. Are you okay lately? Yilin smiled and said, no, everything is normal. Really? Ling Yi lowered her head. Yeah, Yilin said firmly. You. Ling Yi suddenly asked in a low voice, you don't know how to have a girlfriend, do you? Yilin was stunned when he heard this. Ling Yi chuckled and continued, you smell like perfume. Yilin quickly rolled up her clothes and smelled them carefully. Without. He was about to deny it, but the next moment, he stopped laughing, and then he realized that Ling Yi was testing him. That's why I said, your personality and I don't get along. Ling Yi's tone was a little more surprised. You actually have a girlfriend? Is she beautiful? Not really. But I did meet a friend, a pretty good friend. Really? Ling Yi smiled slightly, let me get to know you when you have time. After all, we have known each other for these years, right? You have to let me help you check it, right? I already said I'm not my girlfriend anymore. Yilin argued. He. Ling Yi suddenly narrowed her eyes and laughed. The eyes are curved like two crescent moons. Okay, I believe you. Yilin shrugged helplessly, okay, if there's nothing else to do, I'll leave first. Good. Ling Yi nodded, didn't say anything more, just put on the headphones again, closed her eyes, and smiled quietly. Yilin's expression was calm and she walked forward for some distance. Suddenly, Yilin turned around and stared at the quiet figure in the corner of the yard through the brilliant sunshine. This glance was like traveling through time and space. The figure in the memory quietly overlaps with the quiet shadow not far away. Soon, Yilin took a deep breath and closed her eyes. When he opened his eyes again, Yilin's eyes no longer fluctuated at all and were as calm as water. Yilin came to Ling Wei's side. Her name is Ling Yi. Protect her at all costs. But don't let her know your existence. Ling? Ling Wei nodded. In an instant, he seemed to understand everything. And, the meaning of why he survived. Ever since that day when I accidentally used telekinesis. After Yilin returned home, she began to test the limits of her current psychic power. Yulin knows very well that whether it is strength, agility, or spirit, these three main attributes have limits. And this so-called limit seems to be the limit of life like human beings. But throughout the ages, there have always been many superhuman existences that cannot be explained by human science. In Yulin's view, the superhumans who have left a strong mark on history throughout the ages are nothing more than breaking through the limit in some aspects, reaching a new realm, and becoming existences beyond ordinary people. Arriving at transcendence. And this so-called limit is called a lock in the apostle circle. After the attributes are quantified, the recognized lock is 10 points. Whether you are an apostle or an ordinary person, there is a lock. Only by unlocking the lock can we break through the limits of human beings and achieve extraordinary results. Once you reach the extraordinary, the abilities you display are far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. In the Inagiri mountain trial, whether it was the power that Otamai showed at the end or the speed that when Mani showed before she ghosted, although it was scary, it was not so terrifying that it was incomprehensible. What they have reached is the limit of human beings. There are traces to follow and reasons to rely on. But in that trial, Yulin easily increased her mental attributes to more than 10 points, showing terrifying telekinesis. She moved her hands and feet, and the earth collapsed. No wonder when Mani shouted cheating. Yulin in that state is indeed no different from cheating. After going through the Ghost Mist Mountain trial, without the ghost energy buff blessing, Yulin's attribute values returned to normal. But the mental lock was unexpectedly loosened, and Yulin regained control of the power of psychokinetic power. The ability that should be mastered after breaking through the mental lock is now displayed in advance. Although it is a bit incredible, it is not a bad thing anyway. Yulin was sitting on the sofa, and with the thought, the coffee cup floated into the air. Then he stretched out his tentacles and tried hard to tear open a pack of instant coffee, trying to pour it into a cup. Hiss! All the coffee powder was spilled on the floor. Is it really not that easy? 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. In Yulin's house, many pieces of clothing floated silently in the room, and then it was as if there were countless invisible hands, folding quickly in mid-air, and then stacked one on top of another in an orderly manner. Yulin opened her eyes, a thin layer of sweat covering her forehead. 13 seconds. Yulin silently counted the time. Then he took another look at the consumption of spiritual energy. In the past 10 days, since returning from Yuwo County, Yulin has not stepped out of the door again, focusing on training her psychic power. It's just a pity that compared to the power Yulin showed in the Giwu Mountain trial, the psychic power at this moment can only be regarded as a family harmony version with limited lethality. No matter the precision, power, or durability, they are far inferior to the power displayed in the Animiri Mountain trial. The weight of an object lifted using telekinesis is at most the weight of blood jasmine. The distance covered by telekinesis is only 21 meters. In terms of the number of telekinesis tentacles, Yulin can currently stably control up to 9 objects at the same time. And it shouldn't be too heavy. It seems that the mental attributes are too low. Yulin smiled and walked into the bathroom to take a shower. While washing, summarizing at the same time. No matter what ability it is, it must be mastered to the extent that it can be used to its fullest effect. The same is true for telekinesis, or skills. Yulin never relies too much on a certain ability. In his opinion, the apostle's abilities and skills are just tools. The only thing that can really make a walking step stronger is its attributes. In her previous life, Yulin had already mastered the power of telekinesis. What Yulin is practicing now is just to make this weakened version of telekinesis more consistent with his current attributes. More tricks are not available yet. A little regretful. After Yulin took a shower, she changed into a sweatshirt that was easy to move around as usual, and put all her spare luggage and some compressed food into the storage space. The storage space of a first-order apostle is only 1 cubic meter in size. After stuffing this pile of daily necessities, the storage space seems much more crowded. Early this morning, Molly had already made more than a dozen life-threatening soul-hunting calls, urging her frantically. All members of the investigation team are already at the entrance of Jing'an Hotel and can set off at any time. Except Yiren. You are late. Molly glared at Yilin, who was slowly walking over, gritted her teeth, and spoke word by word. Yilin looked at the time with a calm expression. 8:59. Snapped. 9 o'clock. Just right. Yilin smiled slightly. Humph. At this time, next to Molly, a middle-aged man wearing short sleeves and gold-rimmed glasses, who looked to be in his 50s and had a decent face, snorted coldly and looked at Yilin with a confused look on his face. A bit unpleasant. Xiao Li, is this the intern researcher you call? So many of us are actually waiting for him. He has no sense of time at all. Where did this person get inserted into the investigation team? Don't you think that this investigation anyone can join the team, right? Molly frowned. When she heard this, she felt a little unhappy, but she still explained, he is not a related person, but a friend of mine. He just graduated from Qingcheng High School and has a certain understanding of tower science, so. Understood. The middle-aged man with glasses heard this and became furious. Just because you understand him, let him participate in the investigation of the tower? This is not playing tricks. This is a professional investigation and observation operation. Xiao Li, although it is designated above you, will be the leader of this investigation team, but if the progress of the investigation lags behind or something goes wrong due to other non-professionals, I will report it truthfully. Molly said impatiently. Yilin joined the investigation team as an intern researcher and has already received approval from the superiors. Even if you object, it is useless. Okay, okay. At this time, another tall man with a kind expression, about 30 years old, with a slightly higher hairline, came over and persuaded, isn't this also here? The original meeting time is also 9 o'clock in the morning. This guy is not late, he is not late, just one less sentence for each of them would be fine. Yilin silently listened to the arguments of several people and didn't say much. Intern researcher. Yilin narrowed her eyes slightly. The original instruction he received from Zhao Yulong was, to protect the investigation team. But I didn't expect it to be in such a covered identity. There are 7 people in the investigation team, including Yiren. Although Molly was young, she was directly appointed as the head of the investigation team, perhaps because she had no enemies. That is the captain. It seems that the atmosphere among the investigation team is not very harmonious. Professional academic researchers seem to have a common problem: their colleagues look down upon each other, and everyone thinks I am the best in the world. In addition to Molly's age and junior qualifications, it is understandable that some people criticize her. Accompanying the investigation team is a special field team. Formation of a 5-person team. This is just a regular outdoor investigation, so this team of field personnel is not equipped with too many exaggerated heavy weapons, just conventional equipment, traveling lightly. After Yilin arrived at the door of Jing'an Hotel, except for the man with glasses at the beginning, the rest of the research team didn't say much, but only everyone knew what they were thinking in their hearts. The sun at 9 o'clock in the morning in August is not too fierce, but it is still a bit dazzling. There was a maglev bus parked in front of the Jing'an Hotel. Later, Yilin heard that the bus had been modified for military use and had reached military-grade bulletproof level. Ordinary live ammunition could not penetrate the armor of this bus. You shouldn't be angry, right? While others were loading luggage and various precision measuring instruments on the bus, Molly quietly ran to Yilin and asked in a low voice. Angry? Why should I be angry? When Yilin heard this, she couldn't help but be startled. The person who just criticized you, his name is Zhu Xiuyuan. He is an authoritative expert in the study of tower science. He is also a doctor of mechanical dynamics and quantum mechanics. In some aspects, he is more professional than me. Although he has a bad temper, it's nothing, just a bit serious. Molly briefly introduced everyone in the investigation team to Yulin, briefly mentioning each person's areas of expertise. Yulin felt a little headache after listening to the messy subjects, so she didn't ask in detail and just said a few words casually. When Molly saw that Yulin was really not angry, she felt relieved and began to direct the loading of the equipment. Yulin was a little confused. Could this girl be worried about herself and go on a rampage to kill someone when she's unhappy? Well, am I that cruel? Bai Xiaoi. Nai Hungziu. While the investigation team members were busy loading, one of the field staff quietly came up and stuffed a micro-communicator into Yulin's hand. Team leader, I am the team leader of this field team. Wang Bing, team leader, just call me Xiao Wang. Wang Bing looks very young, in his 20s, with a clean-shaven head, wearing a black vest, and a bunch of lightweight equipment hanging around his waist. He looks quite simple and honest, and even has slight dimples when he smiles. The military-grade micro-communicator is very small, smaller than the nail of your little finger. It sticks in the ear canal and is basically invisible from the outside. Yulin quietly attached the micro-communicator, and Wang Bing chuckled, "Leader, you don't have to be nervous. Leader Zhao has told me that if nothing major happens, I will be responsible for the safety of the site. But if something happens that cannot be solved, I will be responsible for it. I'll let Team Yi take action." At first, when Wang Bing received this order, he was also very puzzled. This little furry guy, who looks like he has no hair at all, is actually an official member of the special group. No matter how he looked at it, Wang Bing couldn't see anything extraordinary about Yulin. But out of absolute obedience to orders, Wang Bing did not show any doubts about Yulin and behaved naturally. Perhaps it is a young master from a certain family who came to the grassroots level for training. Wang Bing secretly guessed deep in his heart. Just as the investigation team was about to set off the top of a building in Qingcheng, there was a flash of light. Gone in a flash. The Tower of Death is located at the junction of Jiayan Province, Chuan Province, and Zizhou Province. On November 11, 2111, the moment the Tower of Death appeared, more than 200 million people nearby evaporated out of thin air. With the Tower of Death as the center, a radius of 50 kilometers is still an uninhabited ruin, shrouded in a thick gray fog all day long. This circle of uninhabited ruins is called No Man's Land. Qingcheng is located in Zizhou Province, only more than 100 kilometers away from the uninhabited land. At the speed of a maglev bus, if the road conditions are good, it will take less than 20 minutes to reach the edge of the No Man's Land. Of course, this is under the condition that the vehicle does not dare to go too fast. As a professional soldier, Wang Bing is very familiar with driving this kind of vehicle. Needless to say, he directly plays the role of driver. The other 4 field staff were also sitting in the 4 corners of the bus. When the maglev bus is driving, it is smooth, and you can hardly feel any bumps. Molly lowered her head, moving up and down, shaking slightly. Yulin took a look and found out that this girl had stayed up late again last night, but she actually dozed off in a short while. Seeing this, Yulin didn't say much, but silently activated her telekinesis, forming an invisible pillow near Molly's chin, holding her slightly shaking head firmly. By the way, think of it as an exercise in thinking power. Except for Molly, who was dozing off, the expert who had angrily criticized Yulin at the entrance of Jing'an Hotel, Zhu Xiaoyuan, sitting in the back row, was in high spirits along the way, talking about all kinds of data that Yulin couldn't understand at all. Others actually listened with gusto, and occasionally uttered bursts of exclamation. Yulin didn't say a word during the whole journey, and an Xian just acted like a transparent person. Zhu Xiaoyuan's eyes glanced towards Yulin and Emily from time to time, his eyes were slightly evil. In his opinion, Yilin was just a bastard who came in from a well-connected household so that he could go back and improve his resume. Zhu Xiuyuan would never give a good look to such a bastard who had no professional knowledge at all. Suck slip. When Molly woke up with her penis intact, she was shocked to find that her penis had curled up into a small lump at the corner of her mouth and was floating around her mouth. This scare almost made her suck her cock back. This scare immediately made Molly wake up. Yilin smiled slightly and quietly removed his telekinesis. Snapped. A small lump of saliva hit Molly's trouser leg. Yilin smiled and made a SHH silencing gesture. Molly gritted her teeth. Fortunately, the two of them were sitting alone and away from other people. There were seats in the front row, so they couldn't see their little movements. Molly quickly wiped the corners of her mouth and glared at Yilin, but since there was an outsider here, Molly couldn't get angry, so she asked softly, "Are you here?" Yilin subconsciously touched the death mark on her chest. The closer she got to the tower, Yilin could clearly feel the existence of it even with her eyes closed. Even with his eyes closed, in the dark consciousness, a layer of grey fog seemed to appear in the direction of the tower. In the fog, there was a magnificent tower, rising into the sky and sinking into the sky. This is the connection between the apostle and the tower. Wang Bing stopped the car and said loudly, "There is no man's land ahead. Because the visibility is too poor, the car can't drive in. Everyone is going to get out of the car and walk into the no man's land. Please vote for recommendation." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 97. Members of the investigation team are no strangers to no man's land. So they all behaved calmly. After the car was stable, the investigation team and the field team got out of the car one after another. The no man's land around the giant tower was originally a bustling city, but the moment the tower appeared, the terrifying power destroyed everything around it, whether it was buildings, roads, or creatures. Everything rests. Only ruins were left. Yilin squinted her eyes and looked into the thick fog. The grey fog is somewhat similar to the scene in Gawu Mountain. But Yilin knew very well that this thick fog was more than just fog. Ordinary people simply cannot survive in the dense fog for a long time. Once they stay for too long, they will be infected with various diseases inexplicably. Human beings living in the dense fog will have their bodies decay day by day at a terrifying speed. The only way to do this is to leave. Once there is no man's land, diseases will gradually be cured. This is also the main reason why no man's land has remained uninhabited during this decade. Detecting the components of dense fog in uninhabited areas is also one of the main investigation contents of the investigation team. Yilin also knew very well that no matter how many times, the investigation team would return without success. Because this is not an existence that humans can understand. This is almost a rule power that cannot be explained by human technology. Yilin asked casually while others were unloading the goods. "Did you stay up late last night?" "Yes, what else?" Molly yawned. Fortunately, Yilin gave her a bottle of specialty ghost oil, which gave her more energy to stay up late. Seeing that no one was paying attention, Molly whispered, "Isn't it because of you?" "Me?" Yilin was startled. A lot of information was found from the Xiao family's industries, and one of them, neural link technology, was actually developed by them to the point where it can be used on the human body. That guy Lao Zhao threw it to me and let me take a look. Can you find other reasonable ways to open it? Neural link technology, Yilin frowned. Simply put, it is a technology that links human nerves with mechanical components. Originally, this technology was hypothesized as early as the last century, but for some reasons, it has been stuck in the stage of human clinical trials, so in the end it was being put on hold. Now there is a ready-made result, and the higher UPS will definitely not let it go easily. Molly explained it simply in an easy-to-understand way. As for the reason, for some reason, it is not difficult to guess. Originally, technologies such as human transformation and human cloning were areas that were explicitly prohibited from research by Dragon Kingdom law. The reason is simple, it is not in line with scientific ethics. But now that Xiao Mo has put this technology with theoretical success stories on the table, the upper management will never give up on this high-end technology. Molly just mentioned it casually and didn't go into details. The bus was parked on the side of the road. All the instruments were packed and each person carried a portion. Even Yilin was asked to carry a heavy bag as she was about to enter the uninhabited land to explore. Be careful. Once this precision instrument is damaged, it will directly ruin this investigation. Zhu Xiaoyuan spoke in a firm tone, staring at Yilin and giving cold instructions. Yilin looked at Zhu Xiaoyuan with a calm expression. For a moment, Zhu Xiaoyuan felt a little scared when he was stared at by Yilin's calm eyes. Set off. Wang Bing didn't waste any time. When he saw that everyone was ready, he took the lead and walked in front of the team. Although the thick fog around the Tower of Death is harmful to the human body, it is only a brief investigation and will not cause much harm to people. This is the conclusion reached by numerous investigations over the past decade. Right now. Yilin suddenly turned her head and looked behind her. At the end of the road, there is nothing special. Illusion. Before Yilin could think carefully about the weird feeling just now, the investigation team began to step into the thick gray fog. Wang Bing opened a sophisticated pad and called up the map. As soon as he stepped into the no man's land, even though he knew clearly that there were no living people living in the no man's land, he did not dare to take it lightly, and his expression suddenly became solemn. Everyone, be careful. We are now at the edge of Jokame town. Keep walking along this road for about 3 kilometers and you will arrive at the city square of Jokame County. The location there is relatively open and suitable for the investigation team to make preliminary investigations. Observe. Wang Bing had already carefully determined the direction before entering the no man's land, so he would not be wrong. It has been nearly 10 years since November 11, 2111, Tower era. In the past 10 years, countless survey teams have entered the uninhabited land for observation, but so far they have not been able to observe the full picture of the uninhabited land and the Tower of Death. The most terrifying thing in the no man's land is not just the layer of gray fog that makes people unknowingly contract diseases. In the no man's land, the magnetic field is chaotic. With the current level of human science and technology, it is still impossible to correctly identify the direction in the no man's land. The only thing that can be relied on is the old map left over 10 years ago. Based on the landmarks that can be identified with the naked eye, compare it with the old map to identify the general direction. The so-called Jokame town actually means that this was once a town called Chang. But now it has been wiped off the map. It's called Jokame town. But the no man's land is already in ruins. In the gray fog, after 10 years of vicissitudes, many buildings have long changed their appearance. Therefore, the accuracy of building comparisons on old maps is only about 60%, according to incomplete statistics. Once you lose your way in no man's land, if you cannot leave the no man's land in a short time, the consequence is that you will never be able to get out of the no man's land. In the eyes of countless people, although there are no monsters or traces of other living people in this no man's land, it is more like a monster that chooses people to eat, and people stay away from it. Wang Bing took the lead, 2 people from the field team were on the side of the team, and 2 people were at the back, protecting everyone in the investigation team in the center to prevent anyone from falling behind or getting lost. In the uninhabited area, due to magnetic field interference, the wireless communication distance is also limited. Once the distance is more than 50 meters, the micro-communicators in the ears of Yilin and the field team will lose their function. Molly and Yilin were in the center of the team and followed the team forward. Have you been up there? Molly suddenly moved closer to Yilin and asked in a voice that only 2 people could hear. Yilin narrowed his eyes slightly, staring at the looming giant tower in the distance, and then said softly, "I guess, I've been up there before." Molly became interested as soon as she heard it. "Been there? How is the scenery up there?" Yilin shook her head and chuckled, "You don't want to know." Molly pursed her lips, "Stingy, will you die if you tell me? Let's talk about it when we have time." Molly thought for a moment, and it was really not a good time to talk about this kind of topic because there were so many people around her. So she could only suppress her eagerness to explore and concentrate on following the team. This is not the first time Molly has entered no man's land. I remember that after I came back from the no man's land for the first time, I fell seriously ill. Later, a famous tower researcher risked his life and entered the no man's land many times and came to a conclusion by analyzing the data. The maximum time humans can stay in no man's land is 72 hours. Once this time limit is exceeded, ingesting too much fog may cause irreversible damage to the human body. And this expert who is not afraid of death is none other than. It was Zhu Xiuyuan in the team. Therefore, although Molly is the nominal captain, in fact, Zhu Xiu has far more experience in entering no man's land than Molly. Perhaps this is also the reason why Zhu Xiuyuan dislikes Molly. But of course, with his qualifications, he wouldn't care too much about the 18-year-old Molly. After all, he recognized Molly's scientific research level deep down. There is even a bit of indescribable jealousy. Before Molly showed her talent, he didn't believe that there were geniuses in the world. Everyone walked in silence for nearly 40 minutes. There are fewer and fewer intact buildings around. This is a traffic light, a zebra crossing. There used to be a fountain in the center of the city square, it should be right here. After Wang Bing carefully compared the old map, he turned around and shouted to the others, "We are now at the Jukame Town City Square. Everyone can move around freely, but be careful not to stray too far from the crowd. Otherwise, once lost, the consequences will be disastrous." Everyone in the investigation team expressed their understanding. Yilin also carefully put down her equipment. Hey, who is that?" At this time, a middle-aged female researcher who was conservatively dressed in baggy jeans and with her hair in a bun saw Yilin's actions and quickly stepped forward and frowned. "You are the intern researcher who is with the team." Before Yilin could answer, Molly rushed in front of Yilin and said in a low voice, "Sister Qing, his name is Yilin." Molly introduced before that Feng Manqing was a well-known doctor of microbiology in China 10 years ago. After the Tower era, he began to study tower science because he was very interested in towers. Compared with the mysterious tower, what interests Feng Manqing more is the grey fog shrouding the no man's land. As for the composition of this layer of grey fog, there is still no accurate statement, and there is endless debate among academic circles. But what is clear is that morphologically speaking, this grey fog is not a gas, a non-solid, or a liquid. It is a material form that does not exist in nature. Regardless of the use of gas masks, isolation gowns, semi-biological semi-permeable membranes, and various scientific methods, they cannot prevent the invasion of grey fog on the human body. The word fog is actually inappropriate. But for now, the scientific community is currently unable to use more accurate vocabulary to name this mysterious substance. The reason why Feng Manqing is interested in grey fog is that she believes that this grey fog is most likely an unknown microorganism. As long as the components of the grey fog can be successfully extracted, Feng Manqing will make her mark in human history. There are heavy ink marks left on it. "Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot." Before Feng Manqing carefully opened the bag. Inside was a high-tech partitioned constant temperature storage box. From the constant temperature box, Feng Manqing took out many sealed glass bottles. In these glass bottles, there are all kinds of things. There are flowers, grass, leaves, liquids of various colors, and even laboratory animals such as mice and insects. Molly glanced at Yilin and saw that Yilin's eyes were wandering. She couldn't help but smile and explained, this gray fog cannot be preserved in any way, so Sister Ching plans to use the indirect observation method to remove the gray mist. Take back various specimens affected by the fog to see if you can extract the special ingredients affected by the gray fog. Suddenly, Molly's smile froze on her face and her tone stopped abruptly. Yilin's palm suddenly grabbed her little hand, and stretched out a finger, constantly touching the center of Molly's soft palm. Scratch and scratch, rub and rub. Makes Molly feel a little itch. Molly was stunned for a moment. Expression dull. The mouth opened into an O shape. Etc. What kind of weird development is this? In this broad daylight, under the gaze of everyone, do you need to be so anxious? Why don't you go to a place with no one around? But in fact, if you think about it carefully, the visibility is not high under the gray fog. As long as the two people do not move too much, the others will focus on their own work and will not notice this. Nonsense. No, 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 that's not the point at all, okay. Molly was a little crazy. She couldn't understand why a bunch of random thoughts suddenly popped into her head. Maybe this is the problem for people with high IQs. In just a few seconds, countless thoughts ran through Molly's mind. This kick is not the same. If he doesn't kick, he will look a bit arrogant. For a moment, Molly was so distracted that she forgot to take her hand out. When Molly came to her senses, she glared at Yilin fiercely. Yilin lowered her head in embarrassment. I'm a little urgent to urinate. Fenmanking worked for a while, but when she heard Yilin's words, she couldn't help but raise her head. Molly became a little anxious immediately. Does it have anything to do with me whether you are in a hurry or not? This. Yilin didn't let go of Molly's hand, feeling a bit of moisture coming from Molly's palm. Am I not familiar with this place? Molly. Fenmanking laughed. She continued to wear latex gloves to avoid contaminating the specimen. She glanced at the two people's clasped hands without leaving any trace, and then looked away. The young man is quite good, Xyli, just go with him, it's convenient. Sister Ching. Molly was embarrassed, she couldn't hear the ridicule in Sister Ching's words. Yilin tapped her ears twice with her fingers. Just two. Then he smiled and said, it doesn't matter. There are no outsiders around. Even if there are professionals protecting me. It doesn't matter if you are here or not. Just go with me. It's not far. Molly's expression changed slightly, and then she nodded helplessly. Without saying anything else, Yilin pulled him towards the gray mist. People have 3 urgent needs. After walking for more than half an hour, Yilin's behavior was not too abnormal. Fenmanking gave a few instructions, then lowered his head and continued to focus on his work. One of the field team members noticed Yilin and Molly leaving, and his tone was a bit surprised. Where are you going? Yilin explained again with a smile. Molly's face was a little pale, and the palm held by Yilin was trembling slightly. But under the cover of the gray mist, the change in Molly's expression was not too obvious. Then remember not to leave too far. Don't exceed the communication distance. Understood. Yilin smiled and said, then please pay attention to the safety of others. Yilin held Molly's little hand all the way and trotted more than 20 meters away. Molly couldn't help but look back. Under the gray fog, the figures of other people were gradually becoming less clear. It was as if there were only 2 of them left in this world. Molly suddenly lowered her head and looked around timidly. You said there won't be anyone around to see us like this, right? What kind? Yilin's expression seemed to be a smile but not a smile, and she slowly let go of Molly's hand. So. Molly responded in a low voice. Haha, you are overthinking. There is not even a single ghost in this no man's land, let alone a human being. Molly glared at Yilin. Didn't you say you wanted to pee? Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. Yilin spoke very slowly, but seemed to be careless. Yilin put his hand into his pants pocket. A card was held in his hand. No one saw it. Molly's eyes widened, but there was a bit of fear and curiosity in her eyes. Yilin turned her head. Be good, the next scene is too violent and not suitable for young girls. Just close your eyes and it will be fine for a few seconds. Violence, your sister. Molly complained in her heart, but she didn't dare to say anything more and closed her eyes tightly. Hiss. Do it. Suddenly. In the deserted place, a low shout suddenly came. The surrounding gray fog fluctuated slightly. 4 different directions. But before the low voice sounded, Yilin's movements were faster and 1 step ahead of the low voice. Yilin flipped her palm over, and the blood jasmine card that had been possessed not long ago was silently broken. But at the moment when the blood jasmine shattered, what appeared from the light in Yilin's palm was not the blood jasmine in the form of a short sword, but countless threads soaked in bloody light. Chi 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 chi. Wang Bing. Directly behind. The distance is about half a meter. Try to stay alive. The moment Yilin took action, she gave instructions directly using the micro-communicator. Countless bloodshot eyes, like a peacock spreading its wings, spread out in all directions with Yilin and Emily at the center. Almost in the blink of an eye, the area within 10 meters centered on the 2 people was covered with dense blood without any gaps. Molly had already heard the noise in her ears, but she frowned and closed her eyes tightly, not daring to open them. However, her delicate body kept shaking uncontrollably, revealing some fear in her heart. How possible? The 4 almost transparent figures were penetrated by countless bloodshot threads. They were directly strung into twists around the 2 people and were frozen in place, unable to move. The blood threads were too dense and filled the space almost instantly. The figure had dozens of fine blood threads penetrating through just 1 finger. At this moment, even the simple action of moving a finger it seems extremely difficult. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Countless blood drops dripped along the blood thread. Make the blood color more vivid. The 4 almost transparent figures were soon stained red with blood. Molly finally couldn't help but open her eyes. Seeing the scene in front of me, I couldn't help but be shocked. This is a Gamma-type military camouflage jacket. Molly looked at the 4 transparent figures dyed bloody, and after suppressing her shock, the first thing she said was this sentence. Yilin listened to the voice coming from the communicator in her ear. The commotion over there seemed to be gradually calming down. Yilin shook and twisted her palms, and countless bloodshot threads cut through the bodies of the 4 figures. After cutting, Yilin took back all the countless blood threads. Get chaos value. 4 messages popped up in front of Yilin's eyes at the same time. Quadra kill. Molly looked at the horrifying pool of meat and internal organs and the blood all over the ground. Her face turned red and white. Even though she had studied anatomy and thought she would be calm no matter what situation she faced, she felt a twinge in her stomach at this moment. The position rolled. After a while, Molly finally suppressed the desire to vomit. Yilin shook off the blood on her hand and looked at Molly, who looked not very well, speechlessly. Didn't I warn you that the scene was very violent? You didn't listen. Molly heard the hint of gloating in Yilin's tone, and she wanted to kick Han Dan in the face. But she knew she was in the wrong, so she didn't do anything. Just taking a deep breath and calming down a little, she asked, "Who are these people? It's broken like this, it's weird that I can recognize it." Yilin shook his head, and then asked through the communicator, "Wang Bing, how are you doing there?" "Died." Yilin frowned. "Did you kill him?" "No," Wang Bing said in a strange tone, "he committed suicide." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 98. In fact, when Wang Bing suddenly pulled out his gun and fired a hail of bullets into the empty space behind him, the investigation team fell into chaos. All of this was actually quite sudden. He had just heard Yilin whisper that someone was quietly following him behind him. Wang Bing didn't believe it at first. As the annual outstanding graduate of the Special Warfare section, he didn't even notice something. How did Yilin, a young guy, find out about it? And he is still a young man who has just graduated from high school and has not yet had time to enter the Special Warfare department for further study? But when Wang Bing used professional reconnaissance methods to survey Qing Mimi's surroundings, he quickly accepted this fact in shock. Around the investigation team, there are outsiders. And there's more than one. Although he didn't know how Yilin found out, Wang Bing made the most professional judgment after confirming this fact. When in doubt, follow instructions. In this investigation team and special service team configuration, Yilin is the superior hidden in the dark. Hence the scene not long ago. Don't worry, there's no one over there for now. Wang Bing looked around doubtfully, but saw a childlike figure flashing past in the thick fog. Illusion. Wang Bing rubbed his eyes. The child's figure disappeared in an instant. After everything was dealt with, Wang Bing carefully came to Yilin and Mo Li with his gun in hand. In an instant, Wang Bing was so shocked that he was speechless by the blood and broken meat all over the ground. Eyes, dumbfounded. Of course, the reason for his shock was slightly different from Molly's. It's not that he found the scene too violent. The reason why Wang Bing was shocked was, Yilin was able to create such a scene on her own. Yilin didn't want to explain too much, so she directly interrupted Wang Bing, who was full of doubts. Look at the pile on the ground, can you recognize who they are? 2 people? 3 people? 4 people? Wang Bing used his professional eyes to quickly determine the number of enemies represented by the corpses on the ground. 4 kills. Wang Bing finally had to accept this terrible fact. The seemingly ordinary and harmless young man in front of me is actually a terrifying existence that is hidden deep inside. He suddenly remembered a legend. The special group are all monsters. So those people are the special group. Not just dedicated to handling exceptions. Themselves. Also abnormal. Wang Bing took the shortest time to calm down and squatted on the ground to identify carefully. In fact, it is undoubtedly difficult to determine the identity of the enemy from the pile of minced meat. But Yilin tried her best to preserve the integrity of her head, just to make it easier for Wang Bing to identify the body. If most of the head can be considered complete. 2, 3 white people, 1 black person. Wang Bing muttered, they are from abroad. Huh, Yilin could see this at a glance. What else? I'm afraid they are special soldiers from outside the Dragon Kingdom. After Wang Bing completed the identification, he stood up with a solemn expression. Yilin did not express an opinion and listened quietly to Wang Bing's judgment. They are wearing the latest Gamma-type military camouflage clothing, which is covered with complex elements that can automatically refract the surrounding light, to a certain extent, almost to the point of being invisible. Of course. I think Miss Molly should know better about the structure and principles of this kind of camouflage clothing. The point is. Wang Bing smiled bitterly and said, this thing is very strictly controlled. Even the killers and mercenaries in the underground world cannot get it so easily. The 5-man tactical team configuration is also the most classic team configuration that is still used today. Of course, the most important point is. Wang Bing raised his head, stared into Yilin's calm eyes, and expressed his judgment, mercenaries and killers don't commit suicide casually. It makes sense. It's the same as my guess. Wang Bing. Yilin smiled slightly and said, one thing, I don't know if you have ever thought about it. A standard tactical team with a total of 5 people, why are there 4 people on our side, but there is only 1 person on your side? Could it be? Wang Bing's pupils shrank suddenly. Yilin smiled and asked, Can you guess at the beginning that I can kill 4 times? Wang Bing slowly shook his head. That's it, even you can't guess it, and these people certainly can't guess it. Don't forget, you are also a 5-man tactical team with standard equipment. Either these people think that Molly and I are more threatening. Either. Yulin sighed softly, our side is more important. Swish. Yulin and Wang Bing looked at Molly at the same time. Wait a minute. Molly, who had been silently listening to the 2 men analyzing the case, saw the 2 men suddenly looking at her at the same time. She suddenly thought about it and widened her eyes. Their target is actually me. The 3 returned to the team. Yulin and Emily looked as if nothing had happened, and under Yulin's instructions, Wang Bing did not publicize Yulin's 4 kills achievement. After Wang Bing found an excuse to fool him, he went to dispose of the body of the deceased. Although other members of the investigation team experienced a period of confusion, it did not have too serious an impact in the end and soon fell back into busy observation work. After all, no man's land is synonymous with danger. They had already realized this before joining the investigation team. This little incident did not reduce their enthusiasm for the investigation, but instead made the investigation team's momentum a lot higher. At the same time, I am also glad that this investigation trip was escorted by the special service team. Molly originally joined this investigation team just to find an excuse to come to Qing Cheng. In addition, with the presence of Yulin, a living experiment material closely related to the tower, Molly did not have much enthusiasm for the investigation. After fooling around for a while, he quietly touched Yulin's side. Tell me, how did you find those people wearing camouflage clothes? The most advanced gamma-type military camouflage clothing is covered with complex optical elements. In terms of light effect, it is extremely close to the point of invisibility. Molly is very curious about how Yulin discovered it. When Yulin held her little hand, Molly really thought Yulin was taking advantage of her at first. But when I think about it carefully, something is wrong. When the 2 of them are alone, Yulin doesn't even bother to look at her unless she has something to do. Isn't it because of the heavy emphasis on in full view? After experiencing the initial shock and embarrassment, Molly soon noticed that Yulin was writing in her palm. So, there is the peeing scene at the end. Life is like a play, it all depends on acting skills. Anyway, it wasn't the first time. Molly suddenly felt that her acting skills seemed to be improving rapidly. Yulin smiled and said, "Have you forgotten?" Huh, Molly was startled. Then in an instant she noticed that an invisible tentacle quietly touched her face. Molly understood immediately. That's Yulin's ability. My perception range is about 21 meters. As long as something is moving within this range, it is almost impossible to escape my perception. Where are those bloodshot eyes? What's going on? Is there a genetic mutation? Molly couldn't help but ask again. At the same time, he also secretly marveled at Yulin's endless superpowers. Haha, Yulin smiled. Molly typed a question mark. Prohibited matters. No one noticed that when Yulin came back, a white child's shadow silently merged into Yulin's body. Bai Xiaoi. When Yulin sensed the existence of those invisible people, she secretly used the spirit-enchanted weapon's built-in skill spirit summoning to release Xiaobai. If this shadow appeared from Yulin in broad daylight in full view of everyone, it would definitely scare people out of their wits. But in the grey fog, Bai Xiaoai's spiritual body was almost transparent, and it suddenly merged into the grey fog and disappeared. Although the summoned spirit will continue to consume spiritual energy, it has a hidden function that is very practical. That is, shared vision. Yulin can switch to Bai Xiaoai's field of vision at any time. Commonly known as, inserting eyes. And this eye can move at will. Moreover, the vision of spirit is very different from that of human beings. That is, living people will emit light. A sizzling light. This feeling, even if Yilin switches to Bai Xiaoai's vision, is difficult to describe in words. But generally speaking, even if those people wear camouflage clothes, in Bai Xiaoai's field of vision, they are as dazzling as Li Chang'e in the crowd, like a light bulb. Camouflage clothing can only affect the structure of the human retina, but it cannot affect the spiritual eyes. It is precisely in this way that Yilin can accurately remind Wang Bing of the enemy's location when the opponent is invisible. The questions Molly asked were indeed forbidden matters. Before Yilin got the Twin Souls spirit card, she didn't expect that Twin Souls would have such benefits. Generally speaking, after the spirit body is separated from the possessed weapon, the spirit enchanting skills related to the spirit body cannot be used. For example, form changes. But the Twin Spirit enchantment card is different. It releases one spirit and another spirit. The spirit enchanted weapon Blood Jasmine has two weapon form changes because it has two spirits, Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoai. Let's not mention Bai Xiaoai's morphological changes for now. The blood thread he used for his 4 kills was Nai Hongxiu's ability. The changing form of the possessed weapon seems to be related to the ability, or preference, of the spirit body during its lifetime. And what impressed Yilin most about Nai Hongxiu during the Giwu Mountain trial was undoubtedly the white hair that he could control easily. One of Blood Jasmine's form changes uses Nai Hongxiu's ability, or preference. Coupled with the enhanced killing skills Yilin learned in the Giwu Mountain trial, the camouflage clothes with a certain defensive power worn by the 4 foreign soldiers were useless. Just like the setting in an old TikTok game, all equipment is paper. The difference is between thick paper and thin paper. But, this consumption is really. Yilin rubbed the slightly stinging eyebrows, quietly glanced at the remaining psychic energy value, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. The spiritual energy consumption of the enchanted weapon form change cannot be quantified. Just like blood threads, the more threads are separated, the wider the range and the greater the consumption. This short round of killings consumed more than half of Yilin's spiritual energy. In desperation, he could only temporarily put away Bai Xiaoai, and narrowed the range of telekinesis perception, leaving only a few invisible tentacles around himself and Molly just in case. He had a hunch that since the other party dared to do such a thing on Dragon Kingdom's territory, it would be more than just a 5-person team. Forget it, I'm just idle. I'm going to test it and see if the changes in the magnetic field here are any different from other observation points. When Molly saw that she couldn't get any more information from Yilin, she clapped her hands and prepared to leave. Yilin hesitated for a moment and stopped talking. Molly rolled her eyes at Yilin. Don't tell me the results. No matter whether it has any effect or not, I am still a little interested. If you tell me the results directly, I will have no interest in doing research in the future. What to do? Hearing this, Yilin swallowed back the words she was about to say. Molly smiled and said, even if the future is destined, the process of exploration is actually more interesting, isn't it? Besides, with you as a butterfly here, many things in the future will be uncertain. Yilin studied Molly's words carefully. After a few seconds, he shook his head, with a hint of relief on his lips. You are right. But don't stay too far away from me. Okay, after Molly agreed, she started to do her own thing. With the invisible man attack happening first, Molly really didn't dare to leave Yilin too far. After all, there are so many people here, and only Yilin can truly protect her safety. Even with her eyes closed, Molly seemed to be able to feel that there were telepathic tentacles from Yilin around her, protecting her from the wind and rain. Thinking of this, she couldn't help humming a tune happily. After Yilin simply replenished her water, she sat down not far from Molly and closed her eyes to rest. Silently restores Shinik energy. Although his eyes are closed, he is within the range of perception of telekinetic tentacles, and to some extent, is even more sensitive than vision. Because the power of thought comes from the brain, everything sensed by the tentacles of thought directly skips the part that is transmitted through the optic nerve. So once the spiritual tentacles sense danger, Yilin's reaction is much faster than the visual reaction. Except for Yilin, the rest of the field team did not dare to take it lightly. Yilin also hinted to Wang Bing that his sensing was not omnipotent, so Wang Bing did not dare to let go of even the slightest sign of trouble and stared at the grey fog around him. Before rejoining the team, Yilin briefly analyzed the current situation for Wang Bing. First, there may be an unknown number of enemies hiding in the shadows. Secondly, the opponent's goal must be to capture Molly alive. After all, Molly's most valuable thing is her brain and research and development capabilities. Therefore, no matter how many people the opponent has, they will never use weapons such as sniper rifles or large-scale explosives that may accidentally injure Molly. Therefore, when the team gathers together, it will make the opponent more restrained and dare not act rashly. Another half hour passed. The rest of the investigation team also completed their work. Feng Manking also carefully collected all the specimens that were exposed to and affected by the fog, and put them back into the incubator for sealed storage. When you return to the laboratory, you can record the changes in the specimens and obtain research data. Okay. Is everyone finished? We are ready to go to the next observation point. Zhu Xiaoyuan shouted excitedly to gather. The attack just now did not have the slightest impact on his desire to explore. On the contrary, it made him more enthusiastic. This group of researchers who stayed in the laboratory every day did not realize at this time that the attack just now was just the beginning. The closer we get to the tower, the thicker the gray mist gets. Visibility is also lower. Has everyone done their jobs? After gathering together, Zhu Xiaoyuan acted like the captain, replacing Molly and asking everyone directly. Other members of the investigation team also responded. Molly yawned lazily and quietly moved closer to Yilin. Safer. Some people seem to be sitting there and being lazy. Zhu Xiaoyuan suddenly looked at Yilin with bright eyes. Suddenly, Yilin's expression condensed. But it wasn't because of Zhu Xiaoyuan's words. But because, while Zhu Xiaoyuan was speaking, a line of text appeared in front of his eyes. An unknown target uses the skill identification technique on you, the skill usage failed. Identification technique. Yilin's heart moved. On the surface, she remained calm, but Yilin expanded her perception range in an instant. Yilin raised his head and shrugged helplessly at Zhu Xiaoyuan. No way, your instruments are too complicated. I can't do it if you ask me to, and I can't afford to pay for it if it gets damaged. When Zhu Xiaoyuan heard this, his tone was stagnant, and he did not argue with Yilin anymore. He relaxed his brows a little and said in a low voice, well, you just need to understand. Remember that you are only an intern researcher in this investigation team. Although you lack a lot of necessary professional knowledge, you still have to do your job well. Professor Zhu. At this time, another tall man came from the side and said with a smile, why do you care so much with a student? Internships are just for experience, aren't they? Besides, young people have the courage to follow us into unmanned OU, this kind of fearless spirit is already commendable, there is no need to be too demanding, haha. Zhu Xiu glanced at the tall man who came to smooth things over, and without saying anything else, he left the place and continued to pack his equipment. Hello, Dr. Lu. After Zhu Xiaoyuan left, Yilin said hello. Huh? You know me. Before the investigation team set off, Molly briefly introduced your situation. Yilin smiled slightly and did not hide anything, telling the truth. Lu Nianan touched his chin. There was a circle of sparse stubble on his chin, which made him look a little unkempt. Lu Nianan patted Yilin on the shoulder. I thought you had read my article in a science magazine. Creation. Have you read it? Which one? Lu Nianan's eyes lit up. I have only read To the Sky That Mankind Will Lose. Lu Nianan's expression froze and he smiled bitterly. This article was written by your little girlfriend. Yulin was slightly startled, but closed her mouth and remained non-committal. Lunianan chuckled, and seeing that Yulin's expression seemed a little embarrassed, he didn't hold on to Yulin and handed Yulin a military kettle. "Drink of water." Yulin waved her hand. "No, I just drank." Lunianan poured a glass out and took a big sip. His expression became more serious. "This must be your first time entering no man's land. You don't know how terrible it is. In the grey fog, you must replenish water and water in time. Food, if the body's immunity is reduced due to dehydration and hunger, it will increase the chance of being eroded by the grey fog. I don't want you to die in an unknown way after you go back." While talking, Lunianan put his wet hand on Yulin's forehead, felt it, and then felt for Yulin's pulse. Yulin remained silent. Lunianan didn't stay too long. He removed his hand from Yulin's wrist and nodded. "The body temperature is normal, and the pulse is not fast. Pay attention to yourself. If you feel uncomfortable, you can come to me. I have a little pain drugs that increase immunity." "Do you suspect that the cause of death from this fog is a virus?" Yulin asked. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 99. Molly once introduced that Dr. Lunianan had profound knowledge in the field of virology many years ago. Molly even said, half jokingly and half seriously, that if the virus in Lunianan's laboratory leaked out, it might trigger a biochemical crisis that would affect the world. Lunianan smiled mysteriously and did not continue the discussion on this overly professional topic. 10 minutes later, everyone packed up their equipment and set off again. Yulin also took the initiative to help Dr. Fengmanking carry the heavy incubator equipment. At this moment, there was a commotion from the front of the team. Looking closer, Wang Bing and Zhu Xiaoyuan were arguing. When Yulin approached, Zhu Xiaoyuan pointed at Wang Bing with red eyes and angry eyes. "No. I don't agree. You are only responsible for protecting the investigation team and have no right to make decisions on the investigation team's actions." Wang Bing carried a gun and said coldly, "The situation is urgent. We must leave the no man's land as soon as possible." "But we only observed one location. The data collected was far from enough." "Dr. Zhu, this is an emergency. I must be responsible for your safety," Wang Bing said in a stubborn tone and refused to give in. "But we must be responsible for the future of mankind," Zhu Xiaoyuan roared. When Wang Bing heard this, his expression changed slightly. For a while, the two fell into a stalemate. No one can convince anyone. Yulin pulled Molly to her side and asked about the whole dispute between Wang Bing and Zhu Xiaoyuan. "I see." Yulin also understood the reason for the dispute between the two parties at this moment. Wang Bing believed that enemies of unknown origin appeared in this uninhabited land investigation operation. In order to ensure the safety of the investigation team, he decided to terminate the investigation and ask to return to the original route. Because Wang Bing concealed some facts, Zhu Xiaoyuan believed that Wang Bing was making a fuss out of a molehill and insisted on continuing the investigation, refusing to give up midway. So the two sides fell into a stalemate. Yulin thought for a moment. Then he whispered a few words in Molly's ear. After hearing this, Molly glanced at Yulin in surprise, but after a few seconds, she walked out. "Dr. Zhu is right," Molly said with a calm expression. "The field team has no right to interfere with the investigation team's actions." Molly's speech made everyone quiet down instantly. Wang Bing frowned, and for a moment he couldn't figure out what Molly meant by her sudden rebuttal. But 2 seconds later, Wang Bing met Yulin's eyes and suddenly seemed to understand something, so he remained silent. Under everyone's attention, Molly continued, "But don't forget, I am the nominal captain of the investigation team, and I have the right to decide the next step of the investigation team." Zhu Xiaoyuan's eyes narrowed and he subconsciously said, "Huh, even you." Molly smiled slightly and interrupted Zhu Xiaoyuan's next words, "Professor Zhu, please listen to me first. I believe that everyone has their own reasons for entering no man's land regardless of the danger. So I think whoever makes the decision alone is not going to be able to convince everyone. I think we can make the decision in a more equitable way." The others were stunned when they heard this. "It's very simple." Molly smiled slightly and stretched out two white fingers, "Vote." After a pause, Molly added, "The 7 members of the investigation team voted. Those who agree to continue the investigation, please raise your hands." The majority obeys the majority. Zhu Xiaoyuan was silent for a moment, and finally shook his head helplessly, "Okay, let's do it." Wang Bing nodded expressionlessly as well. "There are 7 people in the investigation team, including Yilin." Wang Bing felt clear in his heart. Understood. This is the method Yilin came up with, bypassing the stubborn Zhu Xiaoyuan and letting the investigation team go home by voting. As expected, he was worthy of being a member of the special team, and his methods were much gentler than Wang Bing's. Society. Since Zhu Xiaoyuan agreed to vote to decide the investigation team's next move, even if the final voting result was not in line with Zhu Xiaoyuan's wishes, the stubborn old man probably wouldn't be able to lose his face and go back on his words. Could this move be the legendary way to defeat someone without fighting? Wang Bing nodded secretly. But Wang Bing was a little confused. How should he like Yilin in a way that was both subtle and clear? Waiting online. Urgent. I agree to continue the investigation. Yiren smiled and raised her hand. Zhu Xiaoyuan, Feng Manqing, Mo Li, Yilin. 4 people from the investigation team raised their hands one after another. Agree to move on and investigate no man's land. Why? Wang Bing didn't believe it. Zhu Xiaoyuan breathed a sigh of relief and chuckled, "Don't underestimate our determination to study people. Since we dare to form a survey team to explore no man's land, we have already had a certain awareness." Wang Bing frowned. In fact, he was not asking about Zhu Xiaoyuan, but Yilin. Zhu Xiaoyuan had no idea that Yilin was the real decision-maker of this team. Zhu Xiaoyuan didn't know who the person in their field team really needed to protect. Even if the rest of the investigation team insists on going their own way, Wang Bing doesn't mind being the villain as long as Miss Molly insists on returning. It's just that he doesn't understand why Yilin and Molly chose to move on. And it seems that Molly's decision was also inspired by Yilin. Of the 3 remaining members of the investigation team who did not show their hands to vote, Lu Nianan looked embarrassed, and the other 2 looked ashamed. Zhu Xiaoyuan's eyes quickly scanned the faces of Lu Nianan and the others. There was no blame or harsh words said. He just sighed softly, "I hope you are worthy of your knowledge and don't forget the pride you once had." Lu Nianan and the other 3 lowered their heads silently. Zhu Xiaoyuan carried the heavy equipment and came to Yilin. "Young man, I look at you differently." Zhu Xiaoyuan's attitude was completely different from that of not long ago. Yilin knew that this was just a beautiful misunderstanding. But he couldn't explain it. He could only accept Zhu Xiaoyuan's praise helplessly. The team starts again. After all, they are not children anymore, and no one takes the dispute just now into their hearts, at least it doesn't seem like it on the surface. Wang Bing, Zhu Xiaoyuan, and Mo Li gathered together, looked at the map, and discussed the next observation point. If the 2 observation points are too close to each other, the data will not make much sense. But if he goes too far all of a sudden, Wang Bing will also have concerns. After all, the physique of this group of scholars is definitely not as good as that of the special service team, and they cannot travel a long distance in one breath. This is it. Wang Bing pointed to a spot on the map. Displayed on the map is an icon with the word. Represents the school. The school is about 5 kilometers away from the city square, neither close nor far. After discussing with several other authoritative experts, Zhu Xiaoyuan agreed to this route. It's time for you to tell me what's going on, right? Molly and Yilin were walking behind the team. Molly finally found an opportunity and asked quietly. Yilin thought for a while, and after weighing the pros and cons, she still didn't hide it. The other party has my kind. Same kind, Molly reacted instantly. You mean? Someone just used some kind of special ability on me, I sensed it immediately, but I didn't find anyone within the 21-meter range. I initially speculated that there are 3 possibilities. Yilin analyzed slowly. First, after the opponent used his ability, he quickly left my perception range in a very short period of time. Second, the range of the opponent's ability is far beyond my perception range. Third. Before Yilin could explain, Molly thought of what Yilin said next and blurted out, he is among us. Wrong. Yilin shook her head. Why? Molly looked slightly startled. Yilin burst into laughter. Do you think this is a reasoning game? The plot that the murderer is among us. Yilin saw that Molly clenched her pink fists and seemed to be going crazy, so she stopped trying to be submissive and explained in a low voice, for example, in those retro games, the magician needs to consume blue bars to cast magic, right? Then what? Our ability can be understood in this way, and it also requires consuming some kind of blue bars. Yilin tried hard to explain to Molly without violating the taboo. There are 13 people in this team, and there are so many people on the other side. You didn't choose, but you chose me to use the ability. Why do you think it is? Molly is not a fool. After Yilin's vague description, Molly roughly understood the situation. I understand. The third possibility you want to talk about is, there is a spy among us. Yilin nodded. But I still don't understand, why are you so sure that they can't be your kind? Yilin smiled slightly. I'm not 100% sure. Let's talk about the investigation team first. If it were you, after knowing that 1 + 1 = 2, you would still spend a lot of energy to study why 1 + 1 = 2. 2. Molly thought carefully for a few seconds, and then said, yes, 1 + 1 = 2 is just a mathematical answer. In the field of biology, 2 animals will produce offspring when they reproduce, and it will not equal 2. Others include physics, philosophy, quantum mechanics, theology. Stop. I'm not having an academic discussion with you now. Yilin was confused and quickly stopped the topic. In short, it's unlikely, so stop thinking about it. In fact, Yilin's meaning is also very simple. As an apostle, knowing that the tower is a supernatural existence, naturally he will no longer foolishly study the origin of the tower. Because that doesn't make sense. It is better to think of ways to strengthen yourself and survive the next trial. As for the field team, Yilin felt that it was unlikely that they were apostles. There is a mark on the apostle that cannot be erased and is visible as soon as he takes off his clothes. As a senior apostle, Zhao Yulong could not place the apostles in the special group field team. This was not difficult to surmise. Identification technique. The skill is not very rare. Yilin has also heard of it. Identification technique is an auxiliary skill and does not consume much spiritual energy, but it does consume some energy. There is also the issue of skill success rate. It is impossible for all 13 of the opponents to perform a round of identification. This is unrealistic. In other words, the other party learned through some means that he and Molly had left the team and had killed 4 enemies silently, so they attracted the attention of the other party. The release of single target skills requires vision. The opponent should have shared the vision with someone in the team through some skill or prop, and used the identification technique on Yilin. Molly nodded. I understand. If there is a traitor among us, if we return the same way we came, we will undoubtedly play into the other party's hands. Instead, it will give them time to prepare an ambush. It is better to continue moving forward and dissolve the enemy. Change from passive to active. I suddenly discovered that you are much smarter than I thought. Yulin. Then your next plan should be to find a way to find the mole, right? Yulin Biao looked at Molly strangely. Aren't you afraid? Molly waved her hands nonchalantly. What are you afraid of? Isn't there still you? Yulin's expression was slightly startled. The corner of Molly's mouth curled up. If I die, I will never let you go. Before I die, I will kick you to death. So when I think of being able to support you, I don't seem to be so afraid. Molly's words seemed very relaxed, but from Yulin's perspective, Molly's petite back was trembling slightly, which seemed to betray her true mood. Yulin remained silent, reaching out and gently hugging Molly's shoulders. Molly didn't refuse, she just raised her head, looked at Yulin with a half smile with her bright eyes, and whispered, "Are you trying to tease me?" "Don't worry, there's nothing like this," Yulin comforted with a smile. Molly suddenly had the urge to kick the soul to death. But after such an interruption, Molly found that she felt a lot more at ease. "By the way, if you find the mole, what will you do?" When Yulin slowly typed a question mark. "Molly. What do you mean how to deal with it? Is that what it means literally? Can't you understand people?" Molly stared. "What else can we do?" Yulin said in a calm and gentle tone. "Kill him." Molly's pupils narrowed. "If you don't want to kill it, keep it for the new year." Yulin asked back. Yulin asked again in detail about the situation of everyone in the investigation team. Excluding Molly and Yulin, there are currently 5 suspected targets of the mole. Of course, to be on the safe side, Yulin also added the 5 members of the field team to the list of suspects. After all, even though they are not apostles, the possibility of evil spirits still exists. As long as we are human, we have weaknesses. As long as there is a weakness, there is a possibility of being bribed. This isn't surprising. "Do you have a target?" After Emily informed Yulin of everyone's situation, she couldn't help but ask. I have some clues. However, in order to prevent your eyes from betraying you, I decided it would be better not to tell you for the time being." Yulin chuckled. Stingy. Although Molly knew what Yulin said was true, she still felt a little unhappy. On the flat road, there are rusty cars parked here and there. In the grey fog, the once prosperous city is filled with permeable corruption, without any sign of life. A completely dead city. This is death. Yulin squinted her eyes and stared at the looming giant tower at the end of the grey fog. Tower of Death. This is the power of it. It is also the great power possessed by the Knights of the Apocalypse who were born from the tower. Wang Bing walked in front without saying a word. There was an attack ahead. Wang Bing did not dare to let down his guard at all, and never put down the gun in his hand. Several other special forces from the field team used professional tactical arrangements to surround the investigation team, marching slowly, somewhat like lurking in the jungle. Including Zhu Ziuyuan, other members of the investigation team did not think too much. After all, their knowledge was limited. They just carried their luggage and rushed to the next observation point, while sorting out the data obtained not long ago in their minds. Is it useful? Wang Bing actually had no idea. He didn't know whether it was a decision-making mistake for the team to continue to advance deeper into the grey mist. He wasn't sure. The closer the no man's land is to the direction of the tower, the thicker the grey fog becomes. If studies hadn't shown that no isolation measures could isolate this layer of grey fog, Wang Bing would have wanted to wrap himself in 10 or 8 layers of protective clothing. In order to make yourself feel more secure. Suddenly, a special soldier walking in front of the team grunted and loaded the bullet with a click. Almost at the same time, gunfire rang out, bang bang bang. Wang Bing, who was at the front of the team, suddenly fired several shots into the depths of the grey mist. The sudden gunfire caused a commotion again, and the rest of the investigation team squatted on the ground almost subconsciously. As the saying goes, if you stand high, you are more likely to be hit by bullets. Bang bang bang. The only sound on the road echoed was the gunshots of Wang Bing. Wang Bing cursed fiercely, looked back at his comrades behind him, and whispered, "Is everything okay?" Yilin frowned, and with a thought in her mind, she released Bai Xiaoai. Bai Xiaoai chuckled and escaped happily into the grey mist. During the commotion, and because Bai Xiaoai was a spiritual body and was already looming, no one noticed Yilin's move. What happened? Yilin stepped forward and immediately spread her perception after releasing Bai Xiaoai. However, Yilin did not find any hidden enemies around. At least not within 21 meters. When Wang Bing saw Yilin and Emily approaching, he lowered his voice and said, "There is an enemy attack. The second pillar is injured. Gather in. Everyone gather in formation." After Wang Bing used his communicator to give instructions to the others, he squatted down to check Urju's injuries. "Captain, I'm fine." Urju looked like a dark-skinned, honest-looking young man. He grinned and covered his hands with blood flowing between his fingers. "Have a look." Yilin opened the wound on the second pillar and took a look, only to see a sharp knife mark across the palm of his hand. Blood flowed out, but it looked like it was not a fatal wound. After a simple bandage, Urju remained calm and shouldered the gun again. "Leader, look." While the rest of the investigation team were still panicking, Wang Bing calmly took the opportunity to ask Yilin about his next move. Although it was an inquiry, deep down in his heart, Wang Bing still wanted to leave this damn no man's land as soon as possible. Yilin lowered his head and said nothing. Following the direction where Urju was attacked, Yilin found a knife from the ground. He quietly took the knife into his hand with telekinesis, held the handle, and squinted his eyes to observe. While making small movements, Yilin also briefly asked what happened about the accident. Just now, a knife flew out of the grey mist without warning, catching Urju off guard. Yilin, flying knife. Wang Bing, ancient martial arts. Is this the legendary flying knife? Molly came over and stretched out her hand curiously. "Wait, don't move." Yilin inadvertently met Erju's dull eyes. Because Erju's skin was dark, Yilin didn't notice it for a while, but when Erju's lips turned black, he finally noticed something was wrong. "This knife is poisonous. Extremely poisonous." Almost the second after Yilin shouted, Urju suddenly twitched violently and fell straight to the ground. His eyes rolled up, pink foam came out of his mouth, his hands strangled his neck painfully, and a high-pitched wheezing sound came from his throat, as if it was difficult to breathe. Yilin waved his hand, and the poisonous flying knife was directly sent far away by Yilin. "Stay away from here. Can't touch." "That's right. Let Dr. Han come over quickly." Yilin suddenly remembered that there was an intellectual female doctor named Han Bingbing in the investigation team, who was a doctor in medicine. "Quick! Dr. Han! Come quickly!" Han Bingbing was wearing loose clothes that were easy to walk in. She had a mole at the corner of her mouth and exuded the intelligence of a mature woman. But when she came to Urju at this moment, her face turned slightly pale, and she was frightened by the series of changes. When Han Bingbing came to Urju, Urju had already lost his breath. Pupils are dilated. Han Bingbing was about to roll up her sleeves and perform CPR on Erju, but was stopped by Yilin. "It's useless, he was poisoned." Wang Bing told Han Bingbing the general situation. "Poisoned?" Han Bingbing, who was still in shock, could only check Urju's body helplessly. Of course, she was not a forensic doctor, and she was unable to make an overly professional judgment without the conditions. But after briefly inspecting Urju's body, she frowned and said with a certain degree of certainty, "The cause of death should be acute respiratory muscle paralysis and acute pulmonary edema. The nature of this toxin is a bit like neurological snake venom, but it's very toxic." Yilin stood up. "Take a few steps forward." Away from everyone's sight, a white figure silently merged into Yilin's body. After Bai Xiaoi floated around, under the shared vision, Yilin also obtained surrounding intelligence. Nobody. Yilin immediately released her spirit body. But still unable to find traces of the other party. There are only two possibilities. The enemy apostle's agility attribute is very high. The second is that the distance he is located exceeds Yilin's search range. Either way, it's tricky. The other party was like a poisonous snake lurking in the gray fog, hunting its prey slowly and slowly. When the prey is not paying attention, the poisonous fangs are revealed. It's a bit troublesome. Yilin had a headache. The apostle who uses poisonous throwing knives. It seems that I have never heard of this person. Probably not too famous. In other words, not too difficult to deal with. But in a geographical location like Grey Fog in no man's land, the opponent's capabilities become very tricky. The flying knife shouldn't be very powerful, otherwise it wouldn't just cut such a shallow wound on Urju's palm. And if that flying knife apostle had confidence in his own flying knife, he would not use poison, an unpopular but practical method of killing. Cautious, unscrupulous, insidious, and shameless. Yilin silently put a few labels on the other party. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 100. Wang Bing lowered his head and silently closed his eyes for Urju. If you die in peace, I will let you die in peace. After a few seconds, Wang Bing's expression became calm again. He waved his hand and prepared for Han Bingbing to return to the investigation team. Yilin suddenly raised his head and asked, Dr. Han, can an antidote for this poison be made in a short time? Han Bingbing looked a little ugly and shook his head, impossible. The conditions are not enough. The equipment I brought out this time is not enough to extract antivenom, and the environment does not allow it. The process of making antivenom requires a sterile and safe environment, here, in short, impossible. The first deceased person finally appeared in the team. Everyone's expressions were somewhat heavy. Molly lowered her head, a bit depressed on her face. The team starts again. Urju's body was left in place. After a short discussion, Wang Bing ignored Zhu Xiuyuan's objections and changed his destination. Not going to school. Go to the town center hospital. They were also marching in the gray fog, and the number of the other party was unknown. However, in any case, compared to the investigation team, who had their families and equipment on their backs, they undoubtedly moved much faster. The direction in which the flying knives struck was clearly in front of the team's forward direction. Obviously, the other party walked in front of them again. If he foolishly went to school as planned, he would undoubtedly walk into an ambush set by the other party. 15 minutes passed. Another small flying knife flashed through the gray mist. This time it was another special soldier who died. Wang Bing gritted his teeth and rushed into the thick fog almost desperately when his comrade was hit by a knife. Shooting wildly. The same flying knife, the same way of death, the same poison. The knife flew out of nowhere, like the death-stealing god, secretly harvesting lives one by one. When Yilin and his party arrived at the town central hospital, 2 people from the investigation team died and 4 people from the special service team died. A total of 6 flying knives flew silently and took 6 lives. The entire team fell into inexplicable panic. This inexplicable way of death is the source of fear. Zhu Xiuyuan, Lu Nianan, Han Bingbing, Feng Manqing, Mo Li, Yilin, Wang Bing. Before arriving at the hospital, only this few people were left alive. In front of the gray fog, the shadow of a building can be vaguely seen. On the top of the building, there appears to be a red cross. Everyone was silent. Even Zhu Xiuyuan, who had always been stubborn, became confused and like a zombie. Is it wrong? He is bent on seeking the truth. Is this wrong? So many people died, whose fault was it? Zhu Xiaoyuan didn't know. But now he has no time to think about whether he should look back or whether he should go on. He does not know. He didn't even know whether he would survive in the end. Although the others did not say it explicitly, Fen Manking, Han Bingbing and others looked at Zhu Xiaoyuan with a hint of hidden hatred in their eyes. If Zhu Xiaoyuan hadn't gone his own way and insisted on continuing the investigation, so many people in this team would not have died. Yilin was also a little helpless. The other party is too cunning. It is impossible for Yilin to waste her spiritual energy in vain for other irrelevant people. This is their destiny. No one to blame. Yilin just thought silently and acted according to the plan. Coming. Lu Nianan wiped the sweat from his forehead and suddenly said, breaking the silence. Wang Bing looked up with an indifferent expression. The shadow of the building deep in the grey mist looked like a man-eating monster in his eyes. It seemed that as long as he moved forward, everyone would be eaten to the bone. He suddenly had this premonition. He was the only one left in the 5-man tactical field team. He also became a polished commander. Be unique. There was even a person behind him, approaching slowly, but he was not noticed. When the man behind him came within 2 meters of him, Wang Bing heard the sound of footsteps. His tense nerves made him suddenly turn around and raise the muzzle of his gun. Captain Wang, don't mess around, it's me. Lu Nianan was so frightened that he quickly raised his hands and looked pale. You. Wang Bing slowly put down his gun. Seeing that it was Lu Nianan, his tense nerves relaxed a little. Dr. Lu, what's the matter? Lu Nianan sighed softly, with a trace of sadness in his eyes. He shook his head helplessly. It's nothing, Captain Wang, I just want to tell you that the deaths of these people have nothing to do with you. I see that you don't look good, I hope you don't blame yourself too much. Wang Bing gritted his teeth. Not blaming yourself, that's impossible. Wang Bing blamed his own incompetence for the deaths of others. If only my attributes could be higher, my speed could be faster, and my reaction could be more sensitive. Maybe he could block the flying knives that appeared like ghosts, instead of watching his teammates die in pain from the poison. Lu Nianan took a few steps closer and stretched out his hand, wanting to pat Wang Bing's shoulder to express comfort. Dr. Liu's hands were a little moist, as if they had just been washed but not dried. 40 cm. 30 cm. 20 cm. Lu Nianan's wet palm got closer and closer, and was about to touch Wang Bing. Snapped. Right now. A palm inexplicably stretched out from the side, like an iron hoop, tightly clasping Lu Nianan's wrist. Lu Nianan's sad expression suddenly froze. Click click click. His neck was stiff, as if he had a cervical spondylosis attack, and he slowly turned his head. Yilin stood beside Lu Nianan with a smile and glanced at Lu Nianan's wet palms. Dr. Lu, are you washing your hands a little diligently? Wang Bing was stunned. For a moment, he didn't understand the deep meaning of Yilin's move. Lu Nianan's expression changed and his pupils shrank. He pulled out his wrist with force and said with an unhappy expression, what does it have to do with you? What do you think? Yilin chuckled and asked. You. Lu Nianan's breath was stagnant. For some reason, the young man's eyes were calm. The corners of his mouth were obviously smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes. He was terrifyingly calm. Yilin's eyes gave Lu Nianan the illusion that he had seen through everything. It was as if he were standing in the ice and snow without any clothes, which gave him the fear of being seen through his entire body. Impossible. There's no way this kid would find out. Absolutely impossible. 10,000 impossible. Lu Nianan quickly calmed down, frowned, turned around, and snorted, I don't know what you are talking about. I just saw Captain Wang in a bad mood and wanted to comfort him. Lu Nianan took a few steps forward. Suddenly, he froze. The cold touch touched Lu Nianan's neck silently. Lu Nianan was horrified. He lowered his head and saw that what was pressed against his neck was a strange red and white short knife. "Did I tell you to leave?" Yilin stood behind Lu Nianan with a calm tone. "You, what are you doing?" "Captain Wang, this guy is crazy. Stop him quickly." Lu Nianan had Yilin put a knife on his neck and did not dare to move at all, but he decisively asked Wang Bing for help. Wang Bing suddenly raised his head, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes. He ignored Lu Nianan's plea for help. Instead, he looked at Yilin, his eyes full of hatred mixed with a trace of expectation. "Is it him? What I'm looking forward to is. He needs a reason. A reason that is equated with the death of his teammates. Pretty close." Yilin shrugged, and then whispered to Molly, "Don't stay too far away from me." Lu Nianan suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. "You, what are you talking about? Let me go. I am a national first-level protected talent, you have no right to lynching me. I demand a fair trial dash." When the words came to an end, Lu Nianan knew that he had let something slip, and his tone stopped abruptly. "Oh? You also know that you are guilty?" "No. I must report you. You are killing innocent people indiscriminately. And you are just an intern researcher, why should you attack me? Do you know who I am dash?" "Laugh." Yilin slashed it with a knife. Lu Nianan's head was cut off. 2 small columns of blood spurted out from the bilateral carotid arteries. The squirt was quite high. Squirting. When Lu Nianan's skull rolled to his feet, he still retained an expression of disbelief. Legend has it that as long as the knife is fast enough, the person killed will not have time to realize his death, and the brain can still maintain thinking for a few seconds. It turns out that this conclusion is true. Lu Nianan's last thought before his death was, "Why don't you give me a chance to confess and be lenient?" Molly may have seen this kind of scene too many times. This time she didn't scream in surprise, she just closed her eyes and couldn't bear to see this cruel scene. Ah! Ah! On the other hand, when the other members of the investigation team suddenly saw this scene, they all turned pale with fright and screamed in agony. Ah ah ah! The screams were endless, rippling far away without any echo. "Wait, are you going to kill me now?" Wang Bing was stunned. He didn't expect Yilin would be so decisive. "No time. Right now." From the top floor of the hospital, a woman's voice came faintly. Wang Bing was stunned. "Distinguish carefully." The voice seemed to be shouting, "Ghost ah ah ah." What the hell? Could it be that I am hearing hallucinations? Wang Bing subconsciously picked his ears. Yilin didn't pay attention to what others were thinking. She just raised her head and looked towards the top of the hospital building with unfocused eyes. The next second, Yilin stared into the depths of the grey mist and spoke slowly. "Let the world feel pain from now on." Minutes ago. Jokame Town. Town Center Hospital. Top layer. A cute-looking black-haired girl wearing a school uniform was standing on the top floor of the deserted abandoned hospital, closing her eyes and concentrating. After a while, the black-haired girl opened her eyes, stretched out her fingers to suck on the tip of her tongue for a while, and murmured to herself, "It's almost there, there is one special soldier left, and the target's boyfriend, I don't know who he is. Not an apostle? I'm looking forward to it." While muttering to herself, a sickly flush appeared on the girl's face. Suddenly, the girl felt an inexplicable chill coming from her back, causing her to shiver subconsciously. "It feels like there is a gaze hidden in the dark, peeking behind you." "Who?" The girl shook her hands and held 2 small flying knives tightly in her hands. At the same time, the girl also turned around and stared in the direction where the sense of peeping came from. There was no one there. Illusion. The girl thought for a moment and put away the knife. "Forget it, they are almost here, hurry up." The girl licked her lower lip and ignored the inexplicable illusion. She closed her eyes and felt the connection that existed. Her flying knife will definitely hit as long as it is shot. Without exception. It's a pity that the number of reconnaissance guards has been exhausted. We can't let that weird squid poke an eye in and let the Lun family take a good look at how those guys died. Wow, oh, what a pity. The girl said to herself. Feeling the connection that exists in the dark, 2 flying knives silently appeared in her hands again. Giggle. A childlike laughter, like a silver bell, suddenly sounded. The moment she heard the laughter, the flying knife in the girl's hand trembled suddenly, almost losing her grip and falling to the ground. Giggle. In the back. A cold light flashed in the girl's eyes. With a flick of her wrist, she shot a flying knife directly behind her. The moment the flying knife was fired, the girl suddenly turned around, took a few steps back, and distanced herself from the laughter. But when she turned her head, she was shocked to find that the shadow of a child in white was floating in the air without touching the ground, looking at her with a playful expression. The girl's face was expressionless, looking at the shadow floating in the air. There was silence for 10 seconds. 10 seconds later, she couldn't help shouting, "Ghost dash." Huh? Good eyesight. How do you know Xiao Ai is a ghost? Bai Xiao leaned closer and smiled sweetly. Roll. Without saying a word, the girl shot 2 more flying knives towards Bai Xiao Ai. But the flying knife penetrated through the shadow's body silently, leaving no trace. Is it really a ghost? The girl looked at the floating figure in front of her and had a ridiculous idea in her mind. Wrong. It's that person's skill. The moment this idea first emerged, an invisible force enveloped him. The next second, the girl's next move was aborted and she was nailed to the spot. Can't even move a finger. Even the swing of his hair was imprisoned in mid-air. It's like, time suddenly stopped. But only the girl's mind was still functioning normally. Yilin finished activating the skill and moistened her throat. But he found that Wang Bing and Mo Li were looking at him with strange eyes. Yilin couldn't explain it either. This kind of restriction on the use of skills in the second level is not the final decision made by him. He is actually very helpless. You stay. Don't let the others move, I will solve the last little problem. Through the shared vision with Bai Xiaoai, Yilin had seen the apostle hiding in the dark. Now that the enemy hiding in the dark has been successfully brought out into the open, it is now time to finally close the net. Yilin did not hesitate, and directly used Bai Xiaoai's vision to freeze the apostle in place, then activated Run Fast without hesitation and ran towards the town central hospital as fast as possible. 10 minutes later, Yilin appeared on the top floor of the town center hospital. The girl in student uniform pouted and glared angrily at Yilin, who climbed up the stairs. Oh! You didn't run away. Snort. The girl snorted, pointed at Bai Xiaoai floating above her head, and pouted angrily, Run? How to run? If you look for this thing and stare at the Lun family, you won't be able to escape even if you want to. Tisk. Is the enemy actually such a pain in the ass? Yilin had a headache listening to the other party's cooing tone. This was the type of person he wasn't very good at dealing with. Seeing that Yilin had finally arrived, Bai Xiaoai floated up to Yilin with a smile and said with a sweet smile, Master, Xiaoai has completed the task perfectly. Is there any reward? Your name is Xiaobai. Yilin seriously corrected Bai Xiaoai's remarks and put it back into the spirit-possessed weapon without saying a word. Before Bai Xiaoai could even complain, she instantly disappeared in front of the black-haired girl. Master, the black-haired girl heard Bai Xiaoai calling Yilin, and her eyes lit up. You actually like this kind of tone. Yilin decided not to dwell on such boring topics. Although I don't have high hopes, I still ask as usual, who wants to kidnap Molly? The black-haired girl covered her mouth and smiled. Why are you so impatient that you didn't even ask for the Lun family's name when you came up? Yilin shook his head, not interested. The Lun family's name is Bai Jiao. She's a girl, she's 17 years old, and she's still a month away from adulthood. By the way, I wonder if you like my tender and wet type? Also, do you want to know my measurements? As long as you beg me, I might tell you. While saying this, Bai Jiao proudly raised a pair of peppers, and then disappeared. Yilin looked at her calmly, and then said slowly, I'm sorry. TCH, I don't know the goods. A trace of anger flashed in Bai Jiao's eyes, and the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. Small is better than small, big is better, whoever tries will know. Yilin fell silent. There was no fluctuation in expression. But he was thinking about the next plan in his mind. Analyze the opponent's skills. Think before you act. Think before you act. At 30, Yilin has already developed this good habit. Bai Jiao was also a little depressed when she saw Yilin's desolate look. Doesn't the other person like me as a cute Lolita? This trick is obviously very effective against that weird doctor, right? Yilin took a step forward. Bai Jiao raised her hands with a look of helplessness on her face. Okay, isn't it okay for the Lun family to surrender? You're not very young, so why don't you have any thoughts of caring about her? We are all apostles, there is no need to sacrifice for a little bit of the real world. You can kill each other over trivial matters, right? Yilin stopped and smiled slightly. Tell me, who asked you to catch Molly? As the saying goes, every injustice has its owner, and every debt has its owner. Yilin always wants to find out. Then take action. Bai Jiao rolled her eyes and twisted delicately. Did I tell you that you wouldn't do anything? Well, I can consider it. That's okay. Bai Jiao shook her hands, and 10 delicate flying knives were firmly clamped between her fingers. Yilin just watched the other party showing off and made no next move for the time being. Bai Jiao shook her fingers and threw the flying knife downstairs. Look, I lost all my weapons. You should believe it now, right? Yilin squinted her eyes and raised the corners of her mouth. How do I know there are no knives in your storage space? You guys, can't you just trust the Lun family for once because they are beautiful? Bai Jiao was so angry that she stamped her feet. Cannot. Okay, then you. Bai Jiao paused. Suddenly, the 10 flying knives that were thrown downstairs actually flew upward from the bottom of the building from different angles. Then just die for me.